myself. It is Chase. And Chase, before we get started with anything else,
Yeah.
we want to wish you a happy birthday, sir. Happy
Oh,
birthday.
thank
Today's
you.
your birthday.
Yes, thank you. It's the 11th anniversary of my 21st birthday, as I like to say. So, living the dream, 21 forever. I look the age. A lot of people always get shocked when I tell people I'm like 30 plus. Like they'll be like, "Wait, you're 32?" And I was like, "Yeah. What do you think I look like?" And they think I'm like 20. Especially when I shave. When I shave,
That's fair.
I look like a completely like baby. Like everyone thinks I'm like 20 in
Yeah,
the mid 20s and
if
stuff.
I shave, it's a similar thing.
Yeah,
Kinda
I
what
only
I'd say.
shaved.
Yeah.
I only shaved because my beard. Like I don't know if you experienced this, but like my beard was feeling kind of dead. Like the hairs just felt really like they didn't feel as lively. They didn't feel good when I was washing it. They just always felt kind of like I don't know. Like when your hair just kind of feels like all like
Yeah,
stiff
man,
and stuff. Like
you gotta get some beard oil.
no, I did have beard oil. I don't. I'm think I'm gonna ditch this. I use the Maestros or whatever it's called, like the ones you get. Yeah, so I might switch up my beard oil and stuff. No, because it was growing in fine. It was just the hair didn't feel good, so I just shaved, did a fresh start type of thing. So and plus I had some job interviews and sometimes like some jobs I don't know why there's still prejudice over beards. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. For me, I think pretty much after I got out of my army contract, I was like, I'm never gonna be clean shaven again because there's no real need for me to. And luckily, it's never, at least as far as I know, it's never prejudiced me against when it comes to any jobs or anything like that. So yeah, I've had some form of a beard since when did I get out of the army? 2016. So yeah, since
Mhm.
2016. But yeah, when it comes to shaving, when it comes to getting rid of dead weight, there are a lot of teams now that are going to be looking at that when it comes to the teams that got kicked out of the playoffs, because you got to figure out what were the things that brought you to the playoffs, what were the things that caused you to lose in the playoffs. Maybe there's some contracts that you're not going to renew. Maybe there's some contracts that you will renew. Those are all decisions that they got to figure out. But let's talk about what happened on Wild Card Weekend. We know that you and I were very pretty much lockstep,
Yeah.
with the exception of Bills and Broncos. I voted with my heart. It looked really good the first Broncos drive, let me tell you. And then after that, pretty much every Broncos wide receiver, including normally sure-handed Courtland Sutton, decided they were just going to drop balls, drop passes. But I am sure I don't have to talk to you about dropped
No.
passes as we saw on Saturday.
Deflections, everything. Everyone but Lad McConkey, all these bums. They couldn't even sure-handed Will Disley, the blocking tight end. He couldn't catch him. He had two passes that were like one. I know a lot of people are going to point towards the one that was intercepted that led to a pick six. The one that I was more pissed at was like early in the game where the Chargers could have really like put a stamp on it. He literally had the ball in his hand and he was turning to run and he just dropped it. And if
Yeah,
he turned to run, that would have either been a touchdown or at least first and goal on like the 2 or the 3. And it was just
honestly, and we're going to talk about the things that kind of surprised us from Wild Card Weekend, but um, from that Chargers Texans game, I gotta say, as much as people give shit to Justin Herbert, and he definitely made some interesting decisions during that game. A couple of those picks were not his fault in the sense of that they were catchable throws. Like the one that I'm thinking of is the one that goes right through McConkey's hands. It
mhm.
just so happens perfectly. Now, granted, Herb should not have gone as high as he did, so that McConkey didn't have to jump as high as he did. But it just so happens that 5 yards back and a little bit further up the field is a Texans DB. It goes right through McConkey's hands, right into the DB's breadbasket. Like it's one of those situations where they say if a quarterback could catch, he'd be a wide receiver. Well, that was one of those situations where if he had dropped it, I don't even know if you should be like a cornerback at that point. Like that was just so directly to him.
Yeah.
And you can make an argument that hey, the Texans brought the pressure that forced Herbert to feel as though he had to get a little arc on the ball, right? Like there's all those things that play into it. But what were some of the things that surprised you about Wild Card Weekend, and some of your big takeaways when it comes to the teams that survived, the teams that didn't survive, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, man. First, I'll start with the Chargers and Texans. It surprised me that the Chargers were just so conservative in that game and gave up on the run game a little bit too early. I get that they were down, but J.K. Dobbins only had like 8 rushing attempts that game, and it just didn't seem like they were true to themselves that game, and you could kind of tell. And they had no answers for when the Texans were like, because like we all know that Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are great tackles in the NFL. And what the Texans did said, well, Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, they may not beat them, but they can beat your interior offensive line. And the Chargers had no answers for any of the blitzes that the Texans were bringing. I don't even think the Texans' coverage was that good. I know everyone's going to say, well, Herbert threw 4 interceptions. Yes, he did, but like I really think it was the pass rush that forced those interceptions more than Justin Herbert making bad reads. Like he only really had 2 bad reads that whole game for the Texans. Those 2 led to one leading to a pick six and one being a turnover. But yeah, it really shocked me how the Chargers had no answers for that pass rush or didn't even try to counter it with any screen plays or try to counteract it with some running plays. It shows that they definitely need to get some interior offensive line help. Zion Johnson was absolutely fucking dreadful that game, as he's been all year long. I do not know why people overrate him, but they do. I mean, sure, in Madden, he becomes a good offensive guard, but this isn't Madden. This is real life. Guy has all the tools to be a solid NFL guard, and he's just not good whatsoever. Nothing surprised me about Ravens Steelers. It went the way that I thought it was going to go. Ravens picked ass. Broncos and Bills. I was so surprised by Sean Payton's aggressiveness in the first drive, and then the aggressiveness on that fourth down with the fake punt. But then afterwards, the rest of the game, he just wasn't aggressive. Like it was so weird. Like because I really felt there was times where it's like, yeah, the Broncos could have had a chance to done something, but they kept going 3 and out, and it led that defense to keep going on the field and just get their asses kicked. And they were too tired to do anything because it was just once you get Josh Allen and James Cook going, and especially James Cook, that's when it's just like that's when Buffalo can't be stopped. Like James Cook, he's like Josh Allen's the MVP for Buffalo for sure. Like he's the most important player on that roster. But man, once you can't stop James Cook, that's when Buffalo's cooking. So it was just weird seeing the Broncos just be so hesitant. For the Packers and Eagles, both teams kind of pissed me off. First off, the Eagles. I literally hate this team. I hate this team. And not in a like I actually hate them. I just hate watching them because they should have kicked the Packers' ass. I don't understand how inconsistent this team is with all the weapons they have on offense. They literally just, I don't get it. I really don't get this team. They're such a frustrating team to watch. But the Packers, man, I think it's like one of those. You're looking at that Jordan Love contract and you're saying to yourself,
yeah,
was that the right move at this time? Because he did not look good. I know everyone's going to say the elbow injury, but even pre-elbow injury this season, he just hasn't been good. Maybe he still wasn't 100% from the injury that he suffered in Brazil. I don't know, but he did not look good in that playoff game. Buccaneers really surprised me how they did not look like the more composed team against Washington. Like I would figure the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I talked about it. They're a team that has a lot of continuity, a lot of guys that have won. They won a Super Bowl with a good amount of those guys on the roster, but they looked like they were just on the same level as the Commanders, and making silly mistakes like that just did not look good. And then, man, the Rams, oh my God, like that, just playing with house money. They're just like, Stafford coming out looking like the
Playoff
Super Bowl Stafford. Yeah, Super Bowl Stafford. Like he looked phenomenal. It was just like, dang, dude, like if you can get this from Stafford from like 3 more games, and it's not crazy again, and just that defense from the Rams, like you're almost like, man, like, is Aaron Donald still playing? We just don't know it. Is he pretending to be one of these other players? Like Jesus, like this defense is just looking good, and it's just like I look at the road to the Super Bowl for them, and I'm like, man, the Rams, they actually have a strong road to the Super Bowl because you're facing this inconsistent Eagles team coming up, and then heck, who knows what happens between the winner of Washington and Detroit? I'm pretty sure you prefer if it's Washington, and I don't know. I think it's a good chance, but yeah, like Stafford, he looked incredible. So it'll be interesting to see if he carries that momentum into this week's game against the Eagles because, man, if Stafford going to be playing like that, It's gonna be It's gonna be hard to stop that guy. To be honest, he's so good when he's on.
Yeah. So for me, surprises was the Texans doing just enough. Like that offense was not moving. Like
Yeah,
but it was doing just enough, which I guess it's not really surprising, but it's more of the idea of I thought that the Texans were going to have that kind of collapse. Like and I was kind of just waiting for it. I was waiting for the honestly I was waiting for the Chargers defense to be creating turnovers versus the Texans defense. And I was like, cuz there's so many inexperienced people that Stroud would have to get the ball to. Mechie is a developing wide receiver, but he hasn't seen the field a lot of the time. Same with Xavier Hutchinson. So for these guys to be out there and not just getting targets but making catches, I was like, okay, well, all right, I'm expecting something to happen. I'm expecting a fumble. I'm expecting Tarheeb Steele or Derwin James. And to Derwin James's credit, he did. Like he pulled off different things, but it was just the sum of the whole was kind of what brought down the Chargers. The Ravens and the Steelers, no real surprise there. Bills and Broncos, I think my surprise there, and I've talked about this before, either in the chats or here on the show, is that for the Bills and for the Bills in particular, you need power running in the playoffs to be able to kill the clock. And if there was one thing that the Bills didn't have, if you look at all of these teams, the one thing that the Bills don't have is a power running back. They don't have that heavy set kind of guy that can just do those 2 yard, 3 yards, 6 yard runs and eat up clock. James Cook is a great shifty running back. He's an elusive running back, but the idea that he could be a power back, you're not anticipating that. And every other team has that in some way, shape, or form. The Buccaneers cobble together a power back between Bucky Irving and Rashad White. Everybody else has one, really. Maybe you could argue the Commanders don't, but their running game is designed to be that electric. You don't know if it's going to be Jaden Daniels or Brian Robinson. And you can make the argument that you don't know whether it's going to be Josh Allen or James Cook. But the way the Bills used James Cook on Sunday, that was as a power back. They really said at some point in time, we're just going to run down the throat of the Denver Broncos and see if the Broncos can stop us. And if they can stop us, we'll figure something out. And to your point about conservative offense versus not conservative offense, I remember I did say this to you because the score was so close. It reminded me of the Seattle-Chicago game that ended 6-3, where neither team had any reason to really change things up because the score was so close. So your thought process is, if I just work with my game plan, I spent the whole week figuring out this game plan. If I try to deviate from it now, I'm only going to hurt myself, versus if I stick with the game plan because the score is so close, I can try to eat into this lead. And I think Sean saw, I go for it on fourth down with the fake punt, and I still end up punting. I try to kick the field goal at the end of the first half, and Lutz, for whatever reason, he doinks it. So he's thinking to himself, if I just stick with my game plan, it should work. And the problem was that the score, if people were paying attention to the box score, it jumps. It just jumps in towards the end of the third quarter,
yeah,
about halfway through the third. All of a sudden, it just picks up, and you blink, and it's like 28-7. And if you're Denver, then you're like, okay, well, now we kind of do need to, just go no huddle, do these passes, like try to go up tempo. And it's like, if you had shifted to that earlier, however, I do understand Peyton going, why would I need to? It's 13-7, one score, and I take the lead. Why do I need to change up what I'm doing? And I think a part of that is Sean Payton's stubbornness, which in many regards, Sean Payton's stubbornness is great, because he just so happens that more often than not, Sean Payton is right. But the problem is, when Sean Payton is wrong, he does not know how to switch that quickly. And a lot of times in games throughout the year, and you saw this against the Chargers both times, he would make the switch, but by the time he goes to that that no huddle or fast tempo, up tempo kind of thing, he is running out of time to try to get any kind of momentum moving with the ball. So that was my surprise there with the Packers and the Eagles. I think my surprise was I didn't think that the Eagles' run defense was going to be able to stop Josh Jacobs as well as it did, and that was something that was a bit of a surprise to me. I figured that the Packers would be a bit more balanced, but it turned into kind of a controlled thrashing. And I was watching the game with my father-in-law, and we both were like watching it, but at the same time, we're looking to ourselves like nothing is happening. Nothing feels as though it's happening, and the Eagles kind of just seemed as though they were in steady control of the game, no matter what was going on. That brings us to Sunday Night Football, and I don't know if it's a surprise really at this point, but Jaden Daniels' ability to just make plays is absolutely incredible, and it's something that a lot of teams really have to prepare for. They really do need to prepare for, and whether the Commanders' season ends this week or not, I'm not 100% sure. But it's going to be interesting to see the Commanders' offseason, particularly because they are going to have, I think, the second or the third largest amount of cap space to spend, and they will be spending it. They are going to get Jaden Daniels more people to throw to. So it's not just Terry McLaurin that he has as an option, and they're going to be bolstering that defense, a defense that was able to stymie the Buccaneers offense. And the Buccaneers have a very high-powered offense, even without Chris Godwin. They've been missing Chris Godwin for weeks, but they've been able to put up points. And McMillan stepped up, Bucky Irving stepped up, but those players, rookies that they are, there is only so much experience that they have. There is only so much juice that they have. And it was on Baker Mayfield to try to find ways to get the ball downfield, and he could. But once they got into the red zone, there seemed to be a bit of a problem there with the Buccaneers, at least from what I was seeing. I may be wrong there, but the Buccaneers were able to score. Like it almost looked like it was going to overtime for a reason, and they were able to go kind of punch for punch with the Commanders. But the fact that they needed to go punch for punch, or that you always felt as though somehow Jaden was going to pull something out, that was kind of the twist on the tail for me. And it was a little bit of a surprise that I wasn't expecting, mainly because, to what Chase was saying, that level of continuity, that level of professionalism that the Buccaneers defense had. But hey, that's why we play the games, right? That's why there's red and there's green on each side of the column. People can anticipate what's going to happen with different games, and you just never know. And that's kind of also what happened with the Rams and the Vikings, where it was the surprise for me was Darnold and just his inability to get the ball where it needed to go. And there's a lot of talk in different corners of football world, whether it's football Twitter, internet, whatever, Reddits, subreddits, all that kind of stuff, about Justin Jefferson in the second half of playoff games not showing up or not having different things happening. But it's a situation where the Vikings really needed Sam Darnold to show that the week prior was a fluke, and that was something that he could not do. And I don't know what exactly is I don't know what exactly is going to be the long-term solution there, because after two back-to-back games like that for Darnold, it's hard to make the argument that you should be paying him. It is hard to say, hey, this is the guy, and this is the guy that we want to have long term. Like, that's going to be something for the Vikings that it's tough, because you do have JJ McCarthy. And if you're going to say to yourselves, well, Sam is making throws that JJ can make, then we got to trust JJ's big game situations. He's played in, at least for himself at the time, he's played in big games like the national championship for college, and he has shown up. And meanwhile, Darnold, 2 back-to-back games like that, that's something that I think they're going to have a little bit of concern. Actually, that's something before we get into the divisional round. Chase, I wanted to ask you. We were joking about it during the game, but with what we saw happen with Darnold and the Vikings, and that I don't even. It's not even a second half collapse because they just did not look right pretty much the entire game. But what, like, for me, I'm going. If Daniel Jones wants to be the backup, I'd rather pay Daniel Jones, and I'll let Sam Darnold find his way elsewhere because I don't want to go into the next season with. And I get it because it was just, he had these 2 games, but there is the whole body of work of the season for Sam Darnold. I don't want to go into training camp with any kind of quarterback controversy or, Darnold looks slightly better than JJ this day. JJ looks slightly better than, and you got to determine who's going to be the starter week 1. I'm saying, Sam, we tried, everything worked, as well as it could, but we wish you the best of luck with whatever team you want to sign with. That's what I would do if you were the GM and you're in the Vikings' shoes and you're trying to make that decision. What would you do? Because I think we shared it in the main sports chat, but their list of free agents, especially on that defense, is insane. Yeah. I remember I said there, if I was Brian Flores, I would be entertaining every single offer that came my way for a head coach job because I don't know how much money this front office is going to have to pay these players, particularly let's say they do pay Darnold. That's even less money now for that defense that you have to try to spread around to try to keep you in games if you don't know whether or not Darnold's going to be the guy who is leading you on these games that matter versus JJ McCarthy. So if you're the GM of the Vikings and you're now faced with a decision, Darnold or McCarthy, or some combination thereof, and remember you do have Daniel Jones as like a safety valve, what would you do?
Yeah, because the Vikings, they really took advantage of the fact that they got a lot of guys on 1-year prove-it deals, like the Jonathan Billards, the Jerry Tillerys of the world. Yeah. Especially Billard, he played really well for them on that 1-year prove-it deal, and he showed that he's a quality starter in the NFL. So it's one of those things where they have a lot of other homegrown guys, like Harrison Smith is free agent. They brought in Gilmore for a year, and he played okay. They have one of their top corners, I think Byron Murphy. He's also due for a payday and stuff, and he just made the Pro Bowl, so his rate went up too. And it's the thing is like I don't want to leave any doubt for JJ McCarthy. And I know we saw a whole season of Sam Darnold with the KOC and everything. I would still let Sam Darnold walk. I would just because Sam Darnold's going to ask for a ridiculous amount of money. He's going to ask for maybe 20+ mil a year. Are you going to really want to pay? Yeah, that's a little bit too much. And especially if he's just going to end up being your backup. Like, the reason you draft a rookie quarterback is so that way you have the rookie quarterback contract to work with. I would much rather say, hey, look, what's the difference between the upside of Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones? And we've seen Daniel Jones when he's had a good season. It's not like Daniel Jones, yes, is not great, but him and Darnold, I think, are very comparable when it comes to, what their potential can be as starters in the NFL. So I think give Daniel Jones another 1-year deal. Just give him 1 year, 10 mil. You ride with JJ McCarthy. And if JJ McCarthy is not up to speed, you just let Danny Dimes work. And then you let Sam Darnold get overpaid somewhere else. There's going to be a team that's going to pay him. They're going to pay him a lot more. They're going to forget these last 2 games and be like, oh, no, Sam, you know what? No, Sam is the guy. He is the answer. So I think the Vikings should definitely not keep Sam Darnold. Don't even entertain it. I don't care if he won you games. I really don't care. I get it, 14 wins. You have other holes you need to fill, and you need to make sure that your rookie quarterback is happy, because the reason why you're going to have all this cap space for the next 3 years that you have it is because you have JJ McCarthy on that rookie deal. You don't have to extend him until year number 4. Why entertain it? Why? Worst case scenario is, if you're going to entertain this, I would trade JJ McCarthy then. I would just say, screw it. Let's see what capital can we get back on McCarthy. That's what I would do. Because why keep both? Why play with JJ McCarthy's head like that? Because a lot of people forget it was the same shit at Michigan. JJ McCarthy was not he's a tough-minded kid. They kept getting transfer guys after transfer guys to come. they got this kid from SC that was JT Daniels. He was supposed to be the guy or something like that, and then he didn't work out. JJ McCarthy outbeat him in practice. Like, that's the thing. It's just like you don't want JJ McCarthy to always feel like he has to fight. You drafted him with your first overall pick last year. Treat him like that. Say, hey, look, you're our quarterback. You're our guy. Like, look at this.
Just to put this in perspective,
this is their key free agents, like Cam Bynum. Cam Robinson was a fill-in guy. Like that makes sense to walk because like he was there to fill in the void that after Darashaw got injured against the Rams. They traded for him. It made sense because they were trying to go all in. Shaq Griffin, Ballard, Dalton Reisner was good for them this year. Johnny Munt, it's okay. Brandon Powell was a good third receiver for them at times. But yeah, Cam Akers, he showed some life. Aaron Jones, is he on that list too? Or yeah, Aaron Jones, he's on the list. So yeah, this is a lot of talent that you're going to be letting go. And if you look at the cap space I think the Vikings have like $100+ million in cap. When you sign Sam Darnold, that $100+ million becomes like $60 million. I would rather just give Daniel Jones 1 year, $10 million, be a high-end backup. Just be like, hey, you know what? Worst case is if JJ's slow on recovery or if he gets outbeaten. Like, we've seen Daniel Jones have a good season. It's not like Daniel Jones can't have a good season. Sam Darnold can have a good season.
The other thing is,
think Daniel Jones can't?
Daniel Jones having a good season was him throwing to the Giants wide receivers. It's a completely different situation if he's throwing to, I don't know, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. That's a completely different scenario.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I would just say, you know what, Sam Darnold, you'll probably get overpaid by the Raiders or someone's gonna pay Sam Darnold. Someone's gonna definitely say, you know what, these last 2 games, they were they're gonna treat them like anomalies. They're gonna be like, those were anomalies. We don't want to really look at that. But really, to be honest, I wouldn't even entertain Darnold. I would just say JJ McCarthy's my guy. But if you do resign Darnold, you may want to look at shopping JJ because he has some value that will fill the void of Sam Darnold's cap space. Maybe he's worth a first-round pick. Maybe there's a team that says we don't like any of these quarterbacks.
That's the thing. There's a lot of teams that have said that scouts that have said if JJ McCarthy was coming out this year, he would be QB1 versus Shador and Cam Ward. Now, I'm not, some kind of scout guru or anything like that to say that, or to agree with it. But if that's how some scouts are feeling, then I mean, to your point, if they do want to roll with Darnold and say we will shop JJ, there will be teams that will be interested.
Yeah, a lot of teams. They'll definitely take a chance. I mean, he was like the Raiders. Are you telling me like if Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders, he's not going to just salivate saying, "Oh, cool, I did JJ McCarthy"? And we're not trying to say JJ McCarthy is going to be this elite quarterback. No, it's just JJ McCarthy has shown throughout his time in college he has the potential to reach really good status in the NFL. He has a very underrated arm. He's very mobile. He's one of those he's one of those quarterbacks that can definitely shock you. But the Vikings were really, when the Vikings got him, they were shocked. They were like, "Oh, there's no way. Like, he's not going to reach to our pick. We might have to." The Vikings were talking about trading up a lot to get to JJ McCarthy originally. They only had to trade up one spot. They just traded up one spot, and I don't even think they really needed to, unless the Jets were just like, we don't know about Rodgers. We definitely want to get his successor, and they just got freaked out, so they traded up. So, yeah, I definitely think just keep Daniel Jones. We know he's a quality starter. We know what he can do with talent around him. Trust in McCarthy. You drafted the guy. Trust in him. Why put doubt? Why have it where fans have to be torn? And then if Sam Darnold stinks, then it's just you're in the situation. Great, we paid Sam Darnold all this money, and then the cap hit is going to be terrible. And then you lose the luxury of why you have a rookie quarterback because you get cap space. That's why this whole philosophy of draft a rookie, build a super team around him, and then later on we'll figure it out after we have to pay him. Why make it harder for yourself?
But yeah, these are going to be the tough decisions that the Vikings are going to be facing this offseason. But let's talk about the tough decisions you and I are going to be facing right now as we move to the divisional round. So this is an interesting little chart here because some teams on here we were not expecting. We were not expecting the Rams to move on. We were not expecting the Commanders to move on. Everything else we were expecting the Chargers to move on as well, but everything else kind of feels where it's supposed to be. Eagles,
Yeah.
Ravens, Bills. So now I set it up. I didn't set it up according to the dates and times because the 2 1 seeds are going to be playing on Saturday and the 2 2 seeds are going to be playing on Sunday. I set it up for AFC and then NFC. But let's start with our AFC matchups. We've got the Texans coming in to face the Chiefs. Now, we've got Joe Mixon as questionable for the game. We're gonna see if he's gonna play. That's gonna be something to track because the Chiefs front seven, I would say, are not as good as the Chargers when it comes to stopping the run. But the Texans absolutely need Joe Mixon, and they need Joe Mixon to be 100% if they're going to try to beat this Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense is really good at the pass. That's honestly where they're much better at stopping the pass. And the Texans don't have a lot of great pass catchers. So if the Chiefs are able to bring pressure by shutting down, the Xavier Hutchinsons of the world, then or the John Mechie's of the world, then there's not a lot for Nico Collins to do. Nico Collins was super quiet against the Chargers for 2 quarters. He really did not do much. For the first half, he didn't do much. And then all of a sudden, the Texans were playing a lot more loose because of the turnovers, especially after that pick 6. And they just were like, you know what? If we get down, if we lose the lead or the Chargers tie it, then we'll go back. But for right now, we are just going to do everything we can, throw at the wall, see what sticks. And they were saying, Nico, figure out a way to get open. We're going to try to scheme you open as best as we can against Derwin James, against Tarheeb Steele, but you got to get open, and Stroud will get you the ball. And all of a sudden, Nico Collins, if you were looking at his progressions, the numbers started going up for his catches, to the point that he ends up being I think it was 122 or almost 130 yards, which Stroud didn't end up throwing for that much. So it was over, I think it was over half. So not quieting any of my CJ Stroud as a Nico Collins merchant talk, but they're going to need another game like that to beat this Chiefs offense, because the Chiefs offense has started to finally click. And maybe that was the return of Hollywood Brown. Maybe that was getting him back in the lineup. And, sometimes it's just having a quality receiver that has experience. Sometimes it's just that, even if that chemistry isn't 100% there. And I know that he and Mahomes are doing things in the offseason, and then, they weren't able to continue because of the injury. And this is not to say that Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice is an equal exchange. I would put Rashee Rice as better receiver for the Chiefs, not necessarily from a talent perspective, but from what Rashee Rice does for the Chiefs offense and how they use him. I would say that he's much more important in the grander scale than a Hollywood Brown. But having somebody like a Hollywood Brown who just knows, hey, I got to find a way to get open, and I got to find a good way to get open. And then once I get open and I get the ball, even if I don't get yards after the catch, as long as I made the catch, that's what's important. And sometimes the Chiefs were, I'm not gonna downplay how not good Patrick Mahomes has looked this season. However, I will give credit where credit is due, in that he was placing the football where it needed to go. He just wasn't always getting the catches from his receivers. And Hollywood Brown, if anything, is going to make the catch. So this one is, I definitely understand the spread here of the money line spread. I'm going to go Chiefs just because the Chiefs have not yet shown me any real reason to pick against them. The only 2 times that they lost was once where they were resting 11 out of their total 22 starters against the Broncos, and a Bills game that required Josh Allen to kind of stamp himself as a potential MVP for the season. So I I want to give CJ Stroud and I want to give this Texans offense the benefit of the doubt, but this is a Chiefs team that is being carried right now by their defense. And if their defense can swallow up the Texans offense, which is crazy. This is exactly what I said last week. I was saying if the Chargers defense can slow down the Texans offense, the Chargers offense should be able to. But it's a situation where, listen, I'm being a neutral observer, but and I know because it's our division and everything, but I'm gonna trust Pat to figure some dumb shit out more than I'm gonna trust Herbert to figure some dumb shit out. That's just
that's true.
That he's got the track record for it. So I'm gonna take the Chiefs in this one. How about you?
I feel like this is going to be very similar to that one Texans Chiefs playoff game. Remember when like Deshaun Watson and the Texans came in and were kicking the living shit out of the Chiefs? They were up 28-0. It was like, oh man, Deshaun Watson, welcome. You are now an elite quarterback. The Texans, wow. Who would have thought? And then they came back. I feel it's going to be kind of similar. I feel like the Chiefs are going to be a little bit rusty. Rest is important in the NFL, but also it does take away some of those, things that your muscles are used to and just things that you react to in terms of practice and stuff. I do. And Pat just had a new baby, Golden. Golden probably is keeping him up at night. He's probably not 100% sleep ready for this game.
Hold on. Sidebar. Can we just talk about how terrible those children's names are?
Sterling, Bronze, and Golden. You don't like did you know that if they had the fourth kid, it would be Platinum?
The fact that they named this child Golden Ray Mahomes, I was just like, what is...
But you don't like Sterling or Bronze? What about them?
I don't like any of it. Of course, and you know me. I immediately went to my wife and I was like, what is this white people shit? My wife's I'm like, what are your people doing? And she's like, I have nothing to do with this. I'm like, no, this is you. This is all you.
Yeah, because they talked about it on the broadcast that he was going to introduce Golden, and then he said it down the line, if they have one more, it'll be called Platinum.
Wait, no, he actually said that? Like, I thought you were just making that up.
No, yeah, it was on the Amazon broadcast. They said, what's it called? They said that, like, and Pat Mahomes is expecting a daughter named Golden soon, and we talked to him, and we were asking if he was going to go for a fourth, and he said yep, and if he comes out, he'll become Platinum Mahomes. Which just
like raises the question: in the off chance that they have a fifth child, what are they going to name that kid?
Yeah, well, you got to find some more jewelry. Diamond, I guess Diamond. Yeah.
Diamond will work. Yeah, but
yeah, dude. Weird names for children. Like you're just setting up your kids to get bullied. Like that's what you're like. Sometimes you gotta be smart. Like I'm sure we've all had like, what's the weirdest name if you ever had a kid, John? What's the weirdest name you would give to a daughter or a son? Like what do you have any where you're like, oh, I would love to give my kid that name, but
not really. I mean, like I've jokingly with Colleen said that we go with one of two options. Either the first name is super Indian for no reason, and then the middle name is super Irish for no reason, or the first name is super Irish for no reason, which is funny because like my brother, like my name is John Paul Martin. There's nothing Indian about that. And my brother's name is Daniel Martin. Like, there's nothing Indian whatsoever. Now, maybe you could say
I've known a lot of Indians though that were named Daniel. Like, I feel Daniel's part of it is
name. Part of it is the whole, the Portuguese were the ones that came to my part of India first and said convert or die. So we're all Catholic in this one particular area called Goa. Mm-hmm. Like that's why the last names got changed, all that kind of stuff. So like, yeah, I get the whole westernized aspect of it, which is why I don't have a very Indian sounding name. But Colleen obviously is a very Irish name.
Yeah, that's Irish.
Yeah, like I mean, from that perspective, I've said, hey, let's go left field and do something really ridiculous. And then she brought up to your point about kids getting bullied in school, and I was like, well, that's just going to teach them character, how to defend themselves if kids are bullying them for that. But what would yours be if you're going?
If I had a son, I always want to name it Kratos from God of War. But then I know that he'll just get bullied because his name is Kratos. Like it's just gonna be like, why'd your dad name you Kratos? Like what the hell's wrong with your dad? Like I think Kratos is a cool ass name. Like I'll just like I think it's a cool name, Kratos.
I mean,
and stuff.
just for the record, there's not a drop of Greek in you, though, right?
No, I just like the name Kratos. I think Kratos is a sick name and
All
stuff
right.
like that. And then another guy name that I like is Kite. Like just like Kite, like the things that you fly.
Yeah.
I like Kite because like I think kites have good symbolism and stuff, but then he's gonna get made fun of because like they're gonna think it's like a slang term or something. So I'm just going to go with like Caesar or Chance or something like that. Just like something like that. If it was a boy. For women, I don't know. Women names, I feel like that's why I would prefer to have girls because like I just feel like I have a list of women names already lined up, but none of them are just like super like out there. Like they're just regular ass names like Brianna and Adeline and stuff like that. Like like it's not like freaking like what oh like well my kids I would love his middle name to be Godzilla. Like it would be so sick. Could you imagine Godzilla as a middle name for a kid? Like that'd be well, if it's a boy I might do Godzilla as the middle. I love Godzilla.
Yeah,
Godzilla's
but speaking of the number of children I feel terrible for whose parents, and this was before season 8 came out, named their kids like Daenerys or Khaleesi. Like there was actually a spike
yeah.
in that, and then like obviously, like I mean, granted, some people didn't pick up on it, but it was obvious throughout the entire series that they are slowly showing this girl's descent into madness because she is Targaryen. Now, what they did was they just sped run the shit out of the end of it in the 8th season. So for a casual person or somebody just watching or who maybe hadn't read the books and things like that, and granted he hasn't finished them, but like you were just like, whoa, wait a minute, when did she turn genocidal? Like when did she turn into a psychopath? It's like, no, the signs were there. Like they set this in season 1 when they were talking about the inbreeding and all that kind of stuff and how it's made people mad, the Mad King. Like it was all there, but the way it just sped run in the 8th season. So a lot of people had some buyer's remorse on naming their kids Khaleesi or Daenerys, which is another tip of advice.
Daenerys is not that bad because you can just Daenerys go to Khaleesi. Like
Khaleesi, yo, like that's something.
Khaleesi would be a cool middle name. Like that's a good middle name. Not
you know what it is?
Name.
It's a great name for like a German Shepherd. It's not a great name for a human baby.
Yeah, it's like my dog. Like I love Thanos, so I named him Thanos. I'm not going to name my kid Thanos. I'm not going to be like, hey Thanos, come. Yeah, I know. Like if I ever have a boy, like Kratos is definitely one of those names. I would just love and I'd spell it like Kratos and stuff like that. So, but like I just know he's gonna get bullied. Like it would just be like, oh, Kratos and stuff like that. Like if Godzilla's a middle name, it's not that bad. I think that's badass. Like your middle name's Godzilla or something like that. Like one kid name that I would like is Champion. Like I like Champion. I think that's a cool name and stuff. But I feel you would get bullied for that name too. Like, oh, do you only wear Champion and stuff like that? Like,
no, it's not even that. Anytime that kid came in second anywhere for anything, like a spelling bee, they're gonna be going after him.
Yeah, you're not. I guess you're not the champion and stuff like that. Yeah, like but I think Champion's a strong name. You can call him Champ. Yo, what's up, Champ? Every time you see him.
Yeah, well, there you go. But I think you're definitely taking the Chiefs here.
Oh yeah. I can't choose the Texans. I'm sorry. Like it's just hard because like the only two teams that can beat the Chiefs are the 2 and the 3 seed. Like it's nothing against the Texans. I don't think that they're a bad team. It's just more of like I feel the Chiefs have the counter to the Texans. Like the Texans need their pass rush to once again just be unleashed. But this is the time of the season where we've been saying, oh, Kelsey looks old, he looks slow, oh, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden I look at the stat line, 8 for 120, 2 touchdowns, and I'm like, oh yeah, thought Kelsey was washed, like and this Chiefs defense, they're very opportunistic. Like they find ways to like get those big stops when you don't need them or force a huge turnover. It's just the way that this and the way it's Arrowhead, like it's just one of those. It's going to be so much for the Texans to like overcome. And I felt the Texans were just playing above their level last week. Like I don't see them continuing on that same level. And really, to be honest, in that Charger game, if they didn't get those touchdowns on defense, that offense, like the Chargers pretty much were just gassed. Like if you don't have Joe Mixon to do what you did against the Chargers at the end, where he can just run the ball. That's the only way you're going to beat the Chiefs. The way you beat the Chiefs, and this is why the Ravens are constructed the way they are. This is why the Bills are going to lean to the way they are when they play the Chiefs. You got to just keep the ball out of 15's hands. Anytime you give 15 a chance with the ball in his hands, he's going to find ways, man. Like we've seen it time and time again. I recently rewatched that Chiefs and Bills game, that AFC Divisional, where Josh Allen entered God mode, one of the top 5 best performances you're ever going to see out of a single quarterback ever.
Yep.
And they left that motherfucker 13 seconds, and you
That's
would think it's over. There's no way. That's all Patrick Mahomes needed. And that was like, I had to watch most of that on.
And the thing is,
a
lot
lot
of
was
people
slurping Mahomes in that moment.
A lot of people say that it's tough for Pat to do that because he doesn't have, peak Tyreek Hill or peak Travis Kelce anymore. But it's like you don't need those guys in the way this offense is constructed. They are much more of a power run team. And now you've given an extra 2 weeks for Pacheco to really get back into the groove.
Yeah.
This is interesting to me also because to your point about rest and rust, this is the only team that's had 2 weeks off from a starter's perspective. If people want to go, oh, like they rested all the starters against Denver, fine. But here now, this is the only team that's had 2 weeks off. Let's see what happens. That's going to be interesting. I don't know. I understand why the Chiefs are favored, and I understand why the Texans are underdogs. I'm interested to see whether or not the score reflects this much of a gap between the teams. That's something that I think is what I want to pay attention to, because for the Texans, I think you are understanding that you are kind of overachieving where you're supposed to be right now with all the injuries that have happened. But based off of what happens in this game, like let's say for argument's sake, you win, it's going to change your whole offseason. Even if you lose in the AFC title game, it's going to change your offseason because you're going to look at it and go, we beat the Chiefs. They had 2 weeks of rest, and we didn't have Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. What really do we need to change? Like, granted, we're going to have to get an actual YR3 because Tank doesn't look like
he's not playing next season.
Career may be done with how bad that is.
Yeah.
But the other moves that they may have to make, they may look at it and go, we really don't have to do that much.
They could fall into the trap like the Panthers did, where the Panthers, they were like, oh, why do we need to add anything else? We're going to get Kelvin Benjamin back. We're going to be fine. Like, we don't need to re-sign Coney Ely. We can just find someone to replace him. And then you saw what happened. Like, they went from a 15-1 team to like 9-7, barely making the playoffs the next year. So it's just like one of those scenes.
From a perspective of a game that's going to impact the playoffs, I'm not that intrigued by it. But from a game that's going to impact the Texans going forward, I'm very intrigued because it's if you're the Colts, you have a high draft pick. You sort of know what's going on with Anthony Richardson at this point. Kind of some of the moves that you need to make. Like, there's a lot of people that are mocking either Tyler Warren or Loveland to the Colts specifically to get Anthony Richardson, somebody that's a short target, as opposed to Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs, that are much more streaky guys. And Pittman's a great, through the middle of the field guy. But if you have that short option, so they kind of know the Colts, and it's a division where they could easily jump back into it against the Texans.
Oh, that AFC South is so wide open. It doesn't the Texans cannot they can't get comfortable. Like, if they get that division is like one of those where it's always going to be open for a long time. Like, the Texans are not they have not shown that they're going to be like the staple of the division for 5 years to come, as long as Stroud shows a little bit of regression and everything. So yeah, I would definitely be.
They don't look like Peyton Manning's Colts, basically, when it comes to that division. Yeah,
they don't look like they're going to hold a strangle over the AFC South for years to come.
But let's turn to two teams that do kind of look like they're going to hold a stranglehold over their divisions, their respective divisions. Now, maybe the Ravens have a little bit more trouble, but the Bills, they got to be feeling good about themselves when it comes to the dysfunction that's happening with the Jets. When they look at the Miami Dolphins and being unable to play games in cold weather, when they look at the Patriots and say, hey, maybe they do have something in Drake May, but the Patriots got to make wise choices for who they're going to surround Drake May with when it comes to whether or not they're going to win games, which means that the Bills have to go, hey, we have a window. And while we get this stranglehold on the division, we have this window. We got to try to make the most of it. And that means winning games like this, winning games where you are the underdog in your own building. And what's crazy is that this is such a close underdog compared to last week. Because if you look at what we said last week, the only one that was super duper close originally was Rams Vikings.
Yeah.
And that was because and that was before the game got moved. This line was before the game got moved. I don't know what it ended up before the game started when they were in Arizona. But if you're the Ravens and you're the Bills, you got to kind of be upset because this one really is a coin flip game. And you're kind of annoyed that there wasn't some way for you to face the Chiefs, because you know that if you could just knock out the Chiefs, then you're worrying about the Bills if you're the Ravens, or if you're the Bills, you go, okay, if I knock out the Chiefs, then I'm just worrying about the Ravens. This is a situation where you have to go balls to the wall, in essence, to win this game, just to be able to make it to that AFC title game. And if you get some injury in the process, now you're like, damn it, the Chiefs are there, right? Or maybe, who knows? Damn it, the Texans are there. Who knows? And I mean, if you're the Bills, you're like, geez, I really don't want to face the Texans after what happened the last time. Right. 9 for 30, right? Like 9 for 30. That was Josh's numbers. And if you're the Ravens, you're going, I mean, I don't care if I face the Texans. They only got 2 points, and it was a safety. And if you think you got to face the Chiefs, you're like, well, I mean, we just get Isaiah Likely some smaller shoes and we could be in there. And it's a completely different Ravens team than it was in the beginning of the year. They now know how to power run the ball between Lamar and Derrick Henry. You and I were watching that game, and we saw a Ravens drive against the Steelers where the Ravens did not throw the ball. And I remember putting in the chat, actually it was in a different one, but I was saying to some of the guys in there, I was like, this is the closest to 1940s football that I think I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And it was insane because the Steelers, who have a good defense, could not stop it to save their lives. And the Bills are going from a team that couldn't run the ball in the Broncos to a team that runs the ball arguably better than any other team in the league, because the only competition from my perspective would be the Eagles. The Lions, without Monty, they're not up there when it comes to running the ball. They're good. They're probably third or fourth, but they're not one or two. The Eagles would be your main competition, but really it's just Saquon. Like, Jalen will run the ball, but he's not. It's not a run first thing with him where they're not doing as many designed runs for Jalen Hurts anymore. It's more, hey, if the play breaks down, get your ass up because we know you can. With the Ravens and Lamar and Derek, it's a situation where it's like, you really don't know. You just don't know with this read option play. And the way that John Harbaugh and the Ravens offense have been able to, Todd Monken, have been able to devise up this run scheme, it's impressive. I don't know if the Bills defense, that's my question here. My question is, can the Bills defense stop the Ravens offense? Because I think that the Bills offense can put together sustained drives against the Ravens defense. And the problem is that if the Ravens are a team that they just get up by one score and they're happy because they know from the offense perspective, they know all I need to do is get one score. As soon as I get up on you by one score, 7 points, my defense is going to start flying because they know even if you score,
Yeah.
the offense is going to bail us out. It's a great way to play complementary football, and it's hard for me to pick against the Ravens in this one. I didn't see enough from the Bills when it came to Khalil Shakir, when it came to Keon Cole. Like they had breakaway plays against the Broncos, but by the time those plays were coming or were happening, it was when the Broncos defense was gassed the fuck out. It was when the Broncos defense, like they were just so damn tired from being on the field because of that third quarter, because of Sean Payton going conservative due to a 13-7 score. The Ravens, if they get up by one score, they're just going to be flying even more than they already are. It's tough. I'm taking the Ravens, which feels crazy, but against the Bills. But it's like, why wouldn't you pick the Ravens? So how about you? Would you pick the Ravens? Would you pick the Bills? How are you feeling on this one?
A wise man once told me, when you see a home dog in the playoffs, you gotta rise that. You gotta ride them. And I like that the Bills are at home compared to going to Baltimore. And if this game was in Baltimore, I would be feeling the Ravens a lot more. I just feel the Bills, they counter the Ravens so well. And the one thing that you have to do, it's like the funniest thing, but you just have to force Lamar to just be a pure pocket passer. Because then that's when you get bad Lamar.
But he showed
Lamar is better when he can scramble and do and throw and stuff, but being a pure where you force Lamar to take 25 plus pure passing attempts, that's where Lamar has had issues as a quarterback. Like he's still good. Like I'm not saying Lamar's bad. It's just more containing him to just being in the pocket and not letting Lamar do what he does best. That's where I feel like Buffalo can win this football game. And
I want to, but before you go any further, I'm going to change my answer only because I looked and saw what Zay Flowers' status is. And Zay Flowers is not practiced at all.
Yeah, he's out. He's not playing.
Straight practice. I don't know if, like, it was the Steelers and you were able to, like, you knew that Steelers defense, right? You knew that Steelers offense was not going to be a threat to you. So you could kind of do what you wanted throwing wise. So I'm changing it because of the Zay Flowers thing. But anyway, sorry, please continue.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. Because really, to be honest, I do think they can control the ball, but I was really concerned with Lamar near the end of that Steelers game. He was limping. He looked like he was all beat up. And I'm just like, oh, man, like I could just see it in this game where he just goes on a run and then he comes out and he's limping. And he does not look like himself. Like, I do think the Ravens can win this game. I don't think the Ravens are bad whatsoever, but it's just Derrick Henry, he tends to not play really good against Buffalo for whatever reason. That's the one team where it's just like we haven't seen Derrick Henry kick Buffalo's ass like he's kicked other teams' asses. Like remember that Tennessee Titan game, like he came in, he was wearing like the gold shoes, he was all ready, and then he didn't do shit that whole game. Like Derrick Henry was like a ghost against them, and then to me, I just look at this game and I just say they really, really need to establish the run. They really need to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. And I think there's a little bit of Josh Allen. He's pissed. You know, Josh Allen's not one of those guys to say it, but he's telling people in the locker room, what do you mean Lamar's MVP? Fuck that. It's just me. I'm the MVP. And I think this is going to be one of those where Josh Allen looks incredible. He looks like the quarterback that should be the MVP. You know, I think both guys, like, could be co-MVPs for the fuck of it all, to be honest. But I really like the Bills at home, and I just think that they're going to find a way to make sure Lamar doesn't get the touches that he wants and limit King Henry just enough to get the win. I think it's going to be a very, very close game, and Justin Tucker in those environments, and this guy is washed. Oh no way. I can't trust. I can't trust Justin Tucker in these negative 11-degree weather that they're going to be playing in. Like, no, I got the Bills. I got the Bills. I was leaning towards the Ravens before, but after just thinking about it more, and I like that the Bills are a home dog, And I like the fact that they're playing in Buffalo just a little bit more than they're playing in Baltimore. If they were playing in Baltimore, I'd choose the Ravens. But it's just, to me, I feel like this is going to be like one of those where like Lamar, like something bad's going to happen. Like he's going to, like not a serious injury, but he's going to get banged up during one of his runs, and he's going to be limping, and we're going to be like, oh, that didn't look good. And then like we're going to hear Romo be like, oh, Jim, I don't know, Lamar not looking like himself right now. Oh, Josh Allen really want to prove himself, So yeah, I think the Bills are going to win this game, and that Ravens defense. They haven't shown me anything against an offense that can move the ball like the Bills. Like when the Bills can move the football like they do, that Ravens defense, like, yeah, cool. You did that against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense has been anemic like for the last 5 games. The Bills offense, when's the last time they looked anemic? Like at all during this run? Like the Jets, that was the only time, and then they woke up randomly. So that's the thing with the Bills. When they want to wake up, they wake up. And it's scary. While with the Ravens, you need to have those, like you said, you need that touchdown early, because then okay, we got them. We can keep up with them and stuff. But if you don't score on your first drive, like how like sometimes when the coaches they win the toss, they always say, oh, let's divert to the second half. No, if you're the Ravens, you have to say, we want the ball. We gotta show them that King Henry is going to be the guy in this game, because without Zay Flowers, who is their most explosive player, you're relying on Rashad Bateman a little bit too much. Mark Andrews, he's a lot more healthier now. Still relying on him a little bit too much. Like you got to find someone or something. But yeah, I think the Bills are going to win this game and stuff. We'll get Chiefs Bills. Romo will be happy. Mahomes now, and it's going to be a good one, Jim.
Yeah, but that takes us out of the AFC and leaves us firmly into the NFC. And we've got the Rams that handled business. They did it for the city of LA last week, even though they were in Arizona. But the reason why they were in Arizona is why they did it for the city of LA. But they are traveling now to take on the Eagles. And the question here, I got to look it up, I'm not 100% sure, is how are the Rams doing from a physical and emotional standpoint? Because if you think about it as just like, oh, you had a road playoff game. Okay, yeah, you just had a road playoff game. Like if instead of beating the Vikings in Arizona, they had just happened to have beaten the Vikings in Minnesota. Like realistically, from a travel standpoint, it's not that bad. Like you were on buses maybe down to Arizona. No, they probably flew. But like you would have flown back from Minnesota. But practice, where were you guys practicing? What was the emotions being, with family, with friends, everybody going through all this stuff that's happening with the fires? Where are you? And now you have to travel from LA to Philadelphia. Now that travel is something interesting. Now that road game aspect is something interesting, because once again you are kissing the wives and the babies goodbye, and from a certain extent, maybe some of them travel with you. Like maybe the Kelly Staffords of the world travel with Matt. Like maybe that's happening. But for a lot of those people, even if their immediate family is traveling, their extended family that they're helping take care of is probably still remaining in LA. And these fires are being dealt with, but they're not like 100% out. Like they could easily spark back up. You don't really know what exactly is happening there. So like Mother Nature is what it is, and that's always going to be in the back of your mind. And now you got to go and face an Eagles team that you had dropped because of phone. You were transferring from your phone to your Mac. But I was recounting my experiences watching that. It felt like, I know you said the Eagles team pisses you off, but like for me, it felt like a controlled thrashing. Like it was never in doubt that the Eagles were going to win. And it was a situation where they were just like, we have this in control. And they didn't have to do much in order to pull that off. Now, whether or not that continues here, I think is going to come down to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, this is the reason why they signed you.
Yep.
And it's the reason why you signed to them. You could have picked any team. You could have, if the price point was right, you could have picked any team. And if you wanted to be on a different team and you wanted to take less money to do that, you could have. If you were, it was completely up to you. You picked the Eagles because of them affording you the best chance, and they wanted you because you afforded them the best chance. And games like this are why. Last week, it was kind of a controlled thrashing. It did feel like it's a crazy situation where I don't know if it ended up being his final stat line, but I remember at one point towards the end of the game, AJ Brown had 3 targets, 1 catch, 10 yards, and they're winning. Like, that's a crazy situation to me because it should never happen. Just from a target perspective, like if you want to tell me he only got 1 catch for 10 yards because like Xavier McKinney was on him or something like that, that's fine. But like his target number should probably be in like maybe the 6 or 7 range. If you're telling me that it's at 3 and the Eagles are still winning, then I'm like, okay, like what the hell is going on with this game? What defense are they playing? Now, maybe the Packers just did a really great job of taking away A.J. Brown, and that left Dallas Goedert open, and that left Devonta Smith open, because at some points, the Eagles' offense did look like it went in the tank. But again, it felt as though they were like, we can do whatever we want. We're just kind of not trying, to the point that A.J. Brown's reading a book on the sidelines. Shout out to that author. Your sales jumped a bajillion%.
I bought one. I want to get into that. I want to get into that AJ Brown mindset. I want to become a psycho like him. So let's go.
But it's a situation where Saquon, sir, the pressure is on you. Like they didn't want you to break the yardage record because they wanted you rested for the playoffs. Now it's the playoffs. Now it's time to run. And you're facing a Rams defense that stopped Aaron Jones. And you're a better running back than Aaron Jones. But are you good enough to beat this Rams front 7? Because the Rams defense has sneakily flown under the radar for a lot of this season, especially towards the back half. And I think, a lot of credit goes to Sean McVay and Les Snead, the head coach and GM, because how they do player selection in the Rams for the Rams organization really needs to be studied. Like that could be its own book of just how Les Snead does player evaluations. But it's not just how he, like what his process is, it's how he knows which scouts to use, how he knows which scouts to hire, like all of that stuff. Because for a long time there, the Rams never had a first-round pick. They just never did. They would rather have traded their first-round pick to get a quality player or to change a position in the draft. And they've won a Super Bowl recently. Quite recently, they won a Super Bowl, and they have been perennial contenders, even when they, like this season, have looked as though they were not contenders. You have a situation where Cooper Kupp, I don't know if he's still battling the injury that kept him out for a bunch of games in the beginning of the year, but he is pretty much a blocker. And they have Tyler Higbee back, and all of a sudden Tyler Higbee goes, oh yeah, guys, did you remember me? I can get 5 catches for 58 yards. I could be the leading receiver on this team, even though people are expecting it to be a Puka Nacua game. And Puka goes, yeah, I can just do 5 catches for 44 yards. We can win the game. It's fine. That's fine with me. It is a team that is built on a particular culture, and all of these players have bought into the culture. Yep. So with a Rams offense that can move the ball, play off Stafford, the Eagles have to be able to shut that down. It is a situation where you have one of the best running backs and one of the most talked about running backs up against a running back that does not get talked about and does not get heralded that much in Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams does so much for that team. And I'm really, really intrigued to see their numbers by the end of the game. It's possible that it could turn into like an Eagles blowout, and Saquon could have another 100, past the century mark, and so on and so forth. But like, I could also see it being quite close between the two of them when it comes to their rushing yards. The Eagles' defense can be so hit or miss. Like they let the Packers at some points look as though they had a chance, which should not have happened. When you have Christian Watson out, when you have a hampered quarterback and you have no dominant receiver. Like Jaden Reed is a great receiver, but he's not dominant. And Wicks isn't dominant. And Dobbs aren't dominant. Tucker Kraft is doing whatever he can as tight end one, but is it crazy to pick the Rams? I don't know. It doesn't feel crazy to me, but I'm going with the idea that Saquon Barkley is going to be able to beat this Rams front seven. And if they can't stop him, then the Eagles win the game. And I think I know if you pick the Rams, I think I know why you're going to go with it. You're going to do the Sean McVay versus Nick Sirianni. But like, I would be with you, but Saquon Barkley, it feels as though it's a special season for him. I'm going to bank on Saquon Barkley for this week. How about you?
Yeah, I'm banking on Saquon too, just because I hear it's going to snow during this game. And I'm sorry, like, look, there's a difference when you're used to, like, the only player on the Rams that I can think of, like maybe two players that I'm like, who has snow experience? Oh, Kyron Williams when he played at Notre Dame. Other than that, Puka Nacua, I don't know how much snow he saw in Utah, but I'm all like, there's not a lot of guys that I feel like can handle this Philly weather. And we're talking about Saquon Barkley, who grew up in this.
Right.
One of the main reasons that he went to Philadelphia was the fact, oh, my hometown. He went to Penn State. This is the prime Saquon Barkley game. It's going to be like what we saw on Thursday night where he killed the Rams. Like, I don't see it being any different. I feel like the travel is going to affect the Rams. All the things going on here in California with the fires and, these, like, let's be real, like, as these players were like going to Arizona, some of them had to like do evacuations at that time because of another fire that was breaking out. So there's just a lot going on for the Rams, and it's just going to be one of those things where I just feel the Eagles, like, even though they piss me off, they're still the better team. Like, I just look at this team, I'm like, they're better. Like, if this was in a more, like, if this was at SoFi and the Rams were the 2, Eagles were the 4, I'd feel more confident that, like, hey, maybe they'll correct their mistakes from that Thursday night matchup. It was a short week for the Rams, blah, blah, blah. Rams could win. But in Philly, with that crowd, the Rams, what they need to do is they need to score early just so the crowd can be pissed. Because when the crowd's pissed at the Eagles, that's when the Eagles play bad. When the Eagles play like, boo, like they're mad at everything, that's when it spirals out of control. But I don't think the Eagles fans are going to be...
Did you hear them booing when Hurts was doing the kneel down at the end?
Yeah, they're always pissed. They're never happy, Eagles fans. Like this team has won a Super Bowl in the last like 5 years, and they're still angry. Like, they're just like, you know how much I would love just to see a Super Bowl appearance. Like, Jesus, you've been to 2 in the last 5 years, and you won one of them. You beat the greatest of all time that threw 500 passing yards. If you showed me that stat line that Tom Brady had against the Eagles,
it's the highest. It's the highest passing yards in a playoff game.
Yeah, like if you show if you did not show me the score and you showed me Tom Brady threw for 500 yards and this and everything like that, I'm like, oh yeah, they won. Patriots won, right? And then you told me they lost, I'd be like, the hell? They're still upset. But I think the Eagles are going to win this game just because of the weather. Saquon Barkley, I think, is just, he's such a cheat code when he needs to be. And I think this is going to be a good game for Jalen. I think Jalen's going to show some stuff. He's going to, I think he was still a little rattled from like the concussion protocol. I think he gave a thumbs up to whoever the doctor is and stuff. So Eagles fans, just don't be mean to anyone that's in this. Don't be like that one guy who got banned for life. Here's the thing. I get talking shit to fans.
That is one of the funniest things. How do you first off, like, look, I get it, playoff game, tickets are expensive and everything, but bro, you're sitting with Jesus and the 12 apostles, and you're gonna give this poor like lady shit, and now because of it, you're losing your job. Like, oh my god.
Like, here's the thing, guys. I get you're passionate. If you're a passionate fan, I get it and stuff. There's no reason to insult a person and calling a person the C word when she's just cheering that Josh Jacobs got a run. Can't you just be like, she's just happy Josh Jacobs had a great run. That was a great run by Jacobs. Like, well, like, and stuff. Like, if you want to just talk shit and say, but he was short though, that's fine, and stuff like that. But then you have to go on and call her a stupid whatever. I'm like, oh my, don't insult other fans. Don't insult other. If you want to jaw jack with the fan and have a good time, sure. go right ahead. I don't jaw jack with other fans. Like when I went to Chargers Bengals, this Bengals fan was trying to goat me, and I literally said, "Bro, leave me the fuck alone. I'm just trying to watch the fucking game, dog. Like I don't even care what your team does. Like your team is irrelevant to me. Go just cheer for the Bengals. If you want to jaw jack in front of me, if you want to talk shit to me, like go right ahead. But I'm not going to respond." And he was getting pissed that I wasn't responding to him and stuff. And I was just like, I don't talk shit to other fans. There's no what does this benefit
Yeah.
and shit like. There's no benefit out of it. Like I talk shit about what's going on the field, like I like and stuff. Like I like the worst I said about the Bengals. Like, oh, I thought Joe Burrow was so clutch. He looked frozen on that drive. I wasn't talking to a fan saying that. I was talking out loud.
Yeah.
I was just talking out loud. But yeah, look, if you want to just like have fun banter with people, that's totally fine. I always have fun banter with people and stuff like that. Like that's fine. But when you're like insulting a person, that's crazy. But yeah, to lose your job, like, geez, man, that's in the mud too, man. You gotta and oh, you're and you know too, people are gonna freaking and social media the way it is, like, you gotta go on a good social media cleanse for like 2 months and stuff. Like, can you imagine, like, if you had to tell a person, oh, so why'd you get laid off? Well, I went to a Eagles playoff game and I insulted a woman next to me. Oh, insulted a woman? Yeah, I called her a cunt. For what reason? What was she doing? Well, she was cheering that Josh Jacobs just had a really good playoff run, but he was short of the goal line, you see. Just had to remind her that she's a dumb cunt. Like, what?
Yeah.
What made you do that? That was, like, so bad. Like, I get it if you're passionate. I get it. Like, it was just out of nowhere too. Like, hey, let them be happy.
It's a classic. It's a classic Dave Chappelle when keeping it real goes wrong. Like that's basically what
no, dude. Did I tell the Bengals fans to shut up when freaking T. Higgins caught a touchdown? No, I was just like, yeah, let them cheer. They're happy their team scored a touchdown. I didn't say scoreboard. Oh, score! No, I'm just like, damn, that was a good play. Like, you know, like it's frustrating to watch, but I'm not gonna freaking like let them not have fun and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's you're right. That's a situation where it's like time and place, and I get it. Like you think that that's the time and the place, but there's a way to shit talk people and be respectful at the same time. And a lot of the times, if you're able to, and I know this from experience, if you're able to shit talk somebody while being respectful, it infuriates the person even more. And that's something that is absolutely so much fun to do, because in your mind that you could be saying some much more heinous things, many more heinous things to that person, but you also know that it's pissing them off even more, the fact that you are being nice about how you are insulting them. But yeah, no, you're right. That person really does need to go on a bit of a social media cleanse, but a team that does not need to go on a social media cleanse, a team that may feel as though with the change of ownership, they did an entire cleanse, and as such, they are good to go maybe for at least the next couple of years. It's the Washington Commanders. The Commanders last week pulled off a great upset win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now they earned the right, as a Commanders fan that I know said, we earned the right to get our asses kicked by Detroit. And, that could easily, there's if you look at the seeds, they're the same. Every other one is 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, okay, 2 versus 4, then 1 versus 6. It's wait a minute, what's going on here? It's it feels as though a 2 versus 7 game, right? Like from last week. But the Commanders earned the right to travel to Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions. And it's a Lions team that desperately needed rest. Dan Campbell may have been upset that they didn't get a chance to play this week.
Yeah,
but
he would have played a figurative 8th seed. He would have been like, "No, give us the team that missed the playoffs. We'll play still." He would have done it too. He would have done it.
I know and he would have kept going for it on 4th down. But this is a situation that the Lions sorely needed the rest. They got it, and it looks as though they could be ready to fire on all cylinders. I don't know 100% whether or not they've gotten Monty back. I think he still is.
Playing.
He's playing?
Yeah.
Oh
there's
my
no. He said
God.
there's no. The first vegan
This
I
would be a
know.
bloodbath. This
The,
could be a bloodbath.
the first vegan I know to like come back from an MCL sprain like this, like crazy.
Wait, you say vegan?
Yeah, Monty's a vegan.
Get out of here.
That's why he was eating the carrot at the Thanksgiving thing. He's a vegan.
I really didn't know that. That is
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. He either is so when he was on the Bears, it said that he was a pescatarian, so like he
Okay.
only ate fish. But I think somewhere down the line he transitioned to like a full vegetarian or vegan and stuff.
Well, sir, if you are I mean, even if you're a vegetarian, but like if you're a full vegetarian, full vegan, incredible props to you for having the muscle density that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
from me. Like if I was PETA and I'm the vegans like of the world, I would be talking about Monty every single day because
Yeah.
that is a prime example. Granted, genetics is playing a huge part of it, but that is a prime example that you may not need as much animal protein than you think. Now, I don't think that that's true, but if I was PETA or a vegan, I would be saying we need to hoist this guy up on the
Yeah.
flag. And hey, if the Lions make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, I'm sure we will be getting plenty of PETA and vegan ads with Monty involved. He will be on all of the Morning Star, the Tofurkey, all of those things. He will be right there, the poster child for them. But to do that, they're going to have to get past the Commanders. And it sounds crazy or it sounds baffling, especially when you look at these money line odds. But part of it is that you just don't know when all of a sudden Jaden Daniels is going to pull something out of this bag of tricks that he has developed. And you just don't know whether or not Scary Terry or one of these, besides Scary Terry, relatively no-name receivers, is just going to magically be open and the ball is going to find that, sail through the air, and that guy's going to be like, oh, yeah, no, it's right here. I can catch that. And what's incredible about it is that it absolutely makes sense because after we watched Eagles and Packers, my father-in-law and I watched Commanders Buccaneers, and he played high school football, but he was like he didn't understand, like it didn't make sense. And then we're talking about it, and we both realized that what's happening is that Jaden starts to break away and looks like he's getting out of the pocket, and the linebackers come up. That's literally what happens every single time. The linebackers come up because they think they have to go into contain, and then all of a sudden they miss wide receiver 2 or 3 or Zach Ertz, who will now be slightly open, and then Jaden Daniels with incredible athleticism will be able to throw across his body up in the air. It'll arc and it'll land right where only that person can catch it. And it's worked out in that the person has caught it. It reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson's touchdowns to Broncos players last year, where it was just 50-50 balls more often than not to Cortland Sutton. And it just so happened that year, Cortland Sutton caught them. In 2022, the wide receivers did not catch them for whatever reason, whether the ball was poorly thrown, whether they were out of whatever the case was. That's what's happening right now. The linebackers come up because they go, we got to stop this quarterback. We don't want him to go for a 15-yard run. And somebody's open because coverage breaks down. The question is going to be whether or not Aaron Glenn allows that to happen. Because if that doesn't happen, then a lot of the Jaden Daniels magic goes away. They can scheme players open, but a lot of what'll keep their drives alive, and it happened about 3 different times against the Buccaneers, is Jaden breaks out, guy comes up. That's actually what happened with if I remember right, the Bears. Either it was the Bears part of that game, or maybe the next game, where Terry's just randomly open and nobody can see him as though they knew where he was. He makes the catch and then does that, ends up going on what's in essence a crosser turned into a post. He is incredible at that kind of stuff, but the Lions are a pretty disciplined defense. They're not an undisciplined defense. And we saw them really come after what's his name, Sam Darnold, the last time we got a chance to see them in Week 18, and that was with really high-powered wide receivers in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. If the Lions can play a good, you know your assignment, you follow your assignment type of game, I don't think the Commanders defense can stop the Lions offense.
No.
If you're telling me that Monty is back, and even like a 50% Monty or a 75% Monty, if you spot use him when you need to kill the clock towards the end of the first half, towards the end of the second half, that's the way to use Monty as you work him back in. Gibbs has been playing phenomenally, absolutely phenomenally. If it wasn't for Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, Gibbs is the best runner in the rest in this playoff bracket that we have left to pick from. There really isn't any competition for him. Like Kyron Williams, I like you, but like you're not Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah. And now the level of confidence that Gibbs can play with, because he knows he's got a 50% Monty or he's got a 75% Monty to help bail him out, that makes him even more dangerous. That's the power of Sonic and Knuckles, is that Sonic knows I can go balls to, like, I can just try to break through people, because if anything happens to me, Monty's there. And Monty knows I can kill clock, because if we need to go up tempo, we can put Gibbs in real quick if I need that bit of a breather. And the way they play that is so well that I haven't even gotten to talk about Sam Laporta or Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's a very well disciplined team, besides the Lions defense playing disciplined or undisciplined. I think what this game will come down to is Jared Goff's decision making, because Jared Goff can easily have a game where he throws 0 interceptions, or he can have a game where he throws 5 interceptions. We have seen that in the past 2 years, I think twice. I know he did like a 4 interception game or even a 5 interception game earlier this year, and I know he did like a 4 pick one last year. That's going to be the question, because the Commanders are built to take advantage of turnovers. You get the ball in Jaden Daniels' hands, some magic happens, and you see all of a sudden they're kicking a field goal at the very least. If those two things happen, if Goff plays a disciplined game and the defense plays a disciplined game, the Lions win this one. And a part of me believes that the Lions are so bought in on themselves as the team of destiny from the NFC that they believe that it's on them to bring that title home to Detroit. I'm taking the Lions.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, the Lions, it's just one of those, like, they're playing with such high confidence, like the injuries that they suffered all on the defensive side. It doesn't really seem to phase them. Aaron Glenn just finds ways to, utilize the guys that he has. And, having Anzalone back really helped them out against the Vikings. And I could see him providing that kind of spark again against the Commanders. While the Commanders, you don't know if you have your version of Anzalone, the guy that really, is a leader among men, a guy that's going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Famously, Tony Dungy voted him for MVP one year for no reason. Bobby Wagner, he may not be available this game, but Wagner is like such a key contributor to this game. And the Commanders, if they decide to play man defense, you're going to go against Jared Goff, who just like eats up man defense. He's been one of the better quarterbacks at it. Like the thing with Jared Goff is, it's funny. Jared Goff, like, he's not afraid of teams blitzing him. He gets worried when teams are just doing those little 4 pass rushes. Like when you have to force Jared Goff to read the field, that's when you get the 4 interception games from Jared Goff, because then Goff thinks, oh, this guy's wide open, and then, oh, the safety came out of nowhere, interception by this guy. And that's when, but then when you play that style of defense, then the Lions can say, all right, you guys are just going to play all the, like, 8 guys back, that's fine, or 7 guys back, that's fine. We'll pivot to Monty. We'll pivot to Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs, it's like, there's not a running back today where it's just like, once he breaks the second level, he's gone. It's literally like having Tyreek Hill in the backfield.
Credit to Derek and Saquon for their power ability, but Saquon's the only one that to me comes close. They can't match Gibbs' speed.
Yeah. Once Gibbs passes the linebacker, it's always a touchdown. It's like either a touchdown or he's getting down to like the 5-yard line or something. Like it's like who's chasing him down? Like there'll be those plays like you'll see a bunch of Gibbs runs where it's like 2-3 yards and stuff, and then you're like, oh, yeah, he maybe he's not that good. And then later on, they just have that one play, they hand it off, and then he springs past the linebacker, the safety's not in position, the corner's chasing him, touchdown Lions, and then Detroit goes crazy. So that's the game you're going to have to play against the Lions. Are you going to try to make Jared Goff beat you, or are you going to let the Sonic and Knuckles beat you, or even if it's just Sonic, are you going to let Jahmyr Gibbs beat you? Like, that's what you have to figure out on the Commander side of the defense. But the Commanders, they can stay in this game. Dan Quinn, he's just like Dan Campbell. He loves going for it on fourth down. There was a lot of time, like he could have kicked a field goal and would have been fine. And he goes, no, we're going to go for a touchdown here and stuff. And Jaden Daniels is such a gamer. He's one of those guys. And Jaden Daniels, one thing he eats up. He loves when teams blitz him. He loves when teams play zone. Like, he's so good against zone. Like, Jaden Daniels is so patient, and the way that he rolls out, because you have to respect him. The minute Jaden Daniels rolls out, you can't just be like, I'm going to stay in my zone. No, because then he's going to run past you.
Yeah.
So you have to step up to try to slow him down. But then that leads to, like you said, Zach Ertz running across the field, Tiami Brown running across the field, Olamide Zacchaeus is running down the field. It's just like, or Terry McLaurin finding ways to, get into the end zone. Like, that's the thing that the Lions have to do. They can't be too aggressive with Jaden Daniels. Like, you would think, rookie quarterback, be aggressive with this kid. No, with Jaden Daniels, it's almost like the same game plan. You kind of have to just hope that he's kind of confused what's going on there, but also you have to have these Lions defenders just keep playing physical, like Kirby Joseph, Terry and Arnold. Like, he gets pass interferences a lot, but hey, 2 pass interferences, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Would you rather get a pass interference or Terry McLaurin scoring a touchdown on you? Play physical with him, because McLaurin, it's not like he's this big threatening receiver. He's more of a speedster type receiver. He's like, if you stay physical with him, he's good. Like, and we've seen that's where McLaurin struggles. The cornerbacks he struggles against are against those physical corners, like an Arnold, like the other corner that shut down Jefferson. The more physical you get with Terry McLaurin, that's when there causes trouble. And the Commanders, the running attack that they had at the earlier this season, it's kind of gone a little bit of the wayside. Like, Eckler showed up a little bit at the end of the game last week against the Buccaneers, but Brian Robinson, he hasn't looked like himself. Like, he hasn't really looked good. It's really been mostly Jaden that has been carrying the team, and that's the thing with the Lions. They literally have to come in and be the Detroit Lions that just stomp on the people's throats. Not if you try, like, the only way the Lions will lose this game is if they let Jaden Daniels stay in this game. You let Jaden Daniels stay in this game, he's one of those guys. If you let him linger around enough, he will find a way. And he has shown this time and time again this rookie season. He has shown us that he can handle those clutch situations, Jaden Daniels. Like, I know that's like such a ESPN first take type of take, but it's the truth. Like, when you see the sample size of the season against the Falcons, against the Eagles, Bengals early on this season, the Chicago Bears, we saw that he had the arm strength for a Hail Mary. You can't let Jaden Daniels and this Commanders team linger. You have to come in, shove it in their throats. You got to remind them that
it's kind of interesting to me, because it's like, let me give you two different game plans, and you tell me, if you're the Lions, which one would you pick? Either you ball control the fuck out of it and go, we're gonna beat them, or say we want to score 24 to 27 points and super control the time of possession, or do we want what feels as though a 2024 classic Lions, we just dropped 50 points on you?
Ball control. For Jaden Daniels, you got ball control.
That's what I would say. That's what I would say too.
Because
if you score and you score quickly, you're just giving him more time to score himself and go punch for punch.
Yeah, because the thing with Daniels, and this goes back to what from his time in college, was the games where he was always in was because of the fact teams were able, like, he got the ball a lot of the times and the time of possession was close. The bad Jaden Daniels games were like, he didn't get the ball all this much and he didn't really get into rhythm, and they were able to keep him off the field long enough to where Jaden Daniels couldn't be the quarterback that he can. Because, like, when you give Jaden Daniels, Jaden Daniels is like that boxer. He starts off a little slow. He's not really showing all his cards, but then round 4 or 5, He starts letting his punches loose a little bit more. He looks like the boxer that you know he can be. And then later on, it's just like, okay, he can go tip or tap with a person, or he's messing you up by rounds 8 or 9 and stuff. And that's the thing with Daniels. It's just like the Lions. I'm choosing the Lions to win, but if they want to win comfortably and not be afraid of, oh, great, we have to pay. And the thing with the Commanders is they're playing a little bit more free than the Lions. The Lions are playing with a lot on their shoulders. This is like a huge test for them, because like this is like the one game where it's just like, we win this game, we feel like the team of destiny. But you're adding all that extra, like it's a lot of extra. We are the team, and they've gone through so much adversity. While the Commanders, it's like, man, we're not supposed to be here. Like,
Yeah.
What? We're here? Oh, okay, yeah. Why overthink it? Let's just trust Jaden. Why do this? Like, and Dan Quinn, he's and look, out of all the coaches remaining on the NFC side of things, 3 of them have been to the Super Bowl. 1 of them has not. The one is Dan Campbell. Dan Quinn's been to the Super Bowl. People forget he coached that Falcons team that went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he did blow the 28-3 lead, but let's blame Kyle Shanahan, because Shanahan forgot that he could run the football.
Well,
like,
I mean, I would, if I'm blaming anybody, I'm blaming Shanahan, not Quinn. So
yeah, exactly. Because like Dan Quinn, really, to be honest, like he's a good coach. And so, like, Dan Quinn, he's gonna let Kingsbury cook. He's gonna let him do. So that's why, like, if you try to go with the we could score 50, cool. Then Jaden Daniels, you're giving him more time to figure out your defense. And then also too, wouldn't you want to make sure that you're gonna keep that? Because like the injuries are not coming on offense. Besides Montgomery and a couple of your linemen that got banged up a couple times during the season, all your major injuries keep coming on defense, because that defense is out there so much. And wouldn't you want it where it's just like, hey, let's just control the ball. Let's just like tick away the time. Let's have these 7-8 minute drives that just like show our dominance and stuff. Like, yeah, you can have one of those drives where you do a nice little deep shot to JMO, or you design a Laporta play where he breaks off for 50 yards. But I honestly think it's better if you just control the ball, give less reps to Jaden Daniels. Don't let Jaden Daniels be in this game, because if Jaden Daniels is in this game, oh man, Jaden Daniels will become public enemy number 1 in Detroit. He won't even be able to show his face. If Jaden Daniels wins this game, people are going to be so pissed. Like they're going to be like he's already a fan favorite quarterback. I can already see it when the jerseys come out, when the top 10 jerseys during the offseason come out. He's going to be in the top 10. Like he's like easily. But yeah, don't let Jaden Daniels in this game, because he definitely will find a way to keep it competitive. But I think the Lions are going to win. They're just a better team, and like I said, they're playing with a different confidence. They're playing with a different swagger, and this is where the Lions cannot have either. They cannot have the vintage Ben Johnson. Oh, I kicked ass in the first half, and then the second half, it's where are you guys at? Why are you guys punting all the time? What's going on here? Like, because that happens a lot with the Lions, where they'll kick ass for one half, and in the second half, Ben Johnson disappears. And then you have to ask that defense and Aaron Glenn and that defense, you have to ask them to do a hell of a lot to make sure the other team doesn't score.
This is also one of those games that it could feel as though it can come down to one of those 4th and 2, 4th and 3.
Oh, yeah.
Dan Campbell goes for it. It doesn't work out. And then Jaden rips off a touchdown, and then all of a sudden the Commanders are back in it and feel as though they can win the game. And
and Dan Quinn will go for it on 4th down too. It's like it could be one of those where it's like, oh, it's 4th and 3. Dan Quinn goes, all right, Cliff, call the play, and then Cliff has his little play sheet. He's calling it, and it's just like, damn, they're trying to outline, because like, let's face it, Lions have had more national TV games than the Commanders this season. Commanders been doing this 4th down shit this whole year. Like they've been going for it on 4th down. Like they're not afraid of these moments. Like they say, hey, we welcome the challenges. That's what Dan Quinn does.
I'm gonna be super. This one is almost like if there are 2 games to me that are the intriguing games, like one from AFC, one from NFC. Bills Ravens easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And Lions Commanders. Because Eagles Rams, I know we both picked the Eagles. It is a bit of a coin flipper in that sense because of what's going to happen with Saquon, but it also feels like it could be a comfortable Eagles win. This is one of those where there's so many levels of intrigue and things that break slightly one way or slightly another, and it can go either team's way. It's a real fun treat for us to be able to get this game. And man, if you're the Lions and you lose this game, you got to look at it and go, what are we supposed to do? What, like, and I get it. Like, a lot of it'll come down to, hey, we had all these injuries on defense. We didn't have Hutchinson. This could be a vintage Hutchinson, and it's crazy because he's a second-year player, but like a vintage game in the sense of you see why they drafted him so high, like that kind of a thing. And you see that you go, okay, Jaden Daniels is great, but Hutchinson knows how to control the line of scrimmage. And then you'd be able to go, Commanders, what are you going to do this offseason with the second highest or third highest, one of the two, cap spaces in the league? And you're going to have your draft pick. You're going to have free agents that want to come play with the Commanders because of how good Jaden looks. What are you going to do? And I think those are questions that, regardless of how they do this season, regardless of how far they go, are going to be there. We're like absolutely because of how much cap space they have. The fact that Marshawn Lattimore wanted to be traded to the Commanders, like it wasn't just that he wanted to leave the Saints, which he did, but he wanted to go to the Commanders because of how well they were playing. And he didn't really show up. Like Mike Evans cooked him badly during that game. But those are like, he is a quality cornerback throughout the course of a year. And he was coming back from injury and all that. When they have him rested, what is he going to be able to provide to that Commander's secondary? And then you add pieces with him, and you're going to add wide receivers. But if you're the Lions and you lose this game, what are you supposed to do? Like what?
It could lead to bad things where you guys get desperate and you start making trades that you don't need to make. Because I've been telling people like out of all the teams remaining, like I would love to see the Lions win because unfortunately for them, compared to like the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens, their window is so much more smaller because the way their roster is constructed, it is not built for the long term. Like it is just not built for the long term. You have to pay almost all these players at every single key piece. Like you're going to have to pay Kirby Joseph eventually. You're going to have to pay Aiden Hutchinson eventually, Jahmyr Gibbs eventually, Amon-Ra eventually. Again, if you want to keep him for to be a line forever, you're gonna have to pay JMO. You're gonna have to pay your offensive line. Most of these guys are coming up on deals like unless like they want to take pay cuts, but like a lot of them are gonna just say, hey, like I couldn't get it done here. I did what I need to do. I love the culture. I love you, Coach Campbell, but Jacksonville's offering me a bunch of money. Trent Baalke just gave me a $80 million contract for no reason, so I'm going to go to Jacksonville.
This guy should have got Trent Baalke.
Oh yeah, I always will.
Wait, hold on a sec.
So I think he liked AEW last night. Did he love the Death Rider match?
I think we've covered our thoughts on the games for this week. So let's move to some of the off-season stuff. And there's two things.
I'll just say this: Lions, if you guys lose. Don't trade for Max Crosby. Don't be desperate to like try. No, because what I'm saying is this: if the Lions lose at any point, they're going to be desperate and they're going to over trade and stuff. Keep Max Crosby is not going to solve all your issues and stuff like that. Like I get it. Like yes, if you got him this trade deadline, sure, but don't during the off season. Trade for Max Crosby because he went to Eastern Michigan and he's a Michigan guy and pair him up with Hutchinson because then that puts you in more cap hell. You don't want to be in that situation. You want to at least to be able to say we have long-term success with this team because 3 and stuff. But yeah, I like the Lions. I hope they actually go through it with it all because like I said, Josh Allen ain't going to regress anytime soon. Lamar ain't going to regress anytime soon. Pat's not regressing anytime soon. Those AFC teams, Texans possibly on the rise, Commanders on the rise.
Yeah.
Eagles, they're always going to be around. Howie Roseman, he's one of the best GMs. He's going to figure out trades and everything and stuff like that. The Rams are just the only other question mark where it's just like, but they won a Super Bowl, so you kind of go like, McVay got his, so it's not really that big of a deal, So the Lions, it's more of like, hey, we kind of want you guys to win because it sucks for so long you've been miserable. So I would love Lions fans to be happy with this, and it would be one of the greatest sports stories of all time. And also too, I would love if the Goff and a Stafford trade was just like super even, where it's just like, wow,
Right. Yeah.
who would have thought like you traded for 2 quarterbacks and they both won Super Bowls with the respective teams they went to? That would be such a cool thing to say as a fan to see. And I think it would make for more gutsier trades, just like because I felt that was such a gutsy trade that the Rams made. You know, getting rid of a guy like Jared Goff, who's been in the system for so long, trading for a guy like Stafford, like that's a gutsy move to make. And I feel like a lot of teams, like I would just love to see more of that, where it's just like, oh, what? The Texans and the Commanders, they traded C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels. Why? It's like I want to see more shit like that. Like I love when they go gutsy, but yeah, no, I really think that the Lions. I hope they do win, but yeah, if they lose, you're going to see a lot of desperation from them, and it's not going to look good. Like the teams that get desperate, it never ends well for them.
Yeah. And
look at the Eagles with that Michael Vick dream team stuff. They got desperate. They were doing all this crap, and then they ended up sucking.
But speaking of, I mean, the idea of being desperate, one team that could feel that way or may come across that way is the Jacksonville Jaguars, the aforementioned Jaguars, Trent Baalke, because Shad Khan said, this is the best talent-wise team that we have been able to put together in my time as ownership. We're going to do great things, and they really didn't. But one thing that I don't know if you saw this, it is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah,
it's one of the funniest things I saw all week. Did you see it? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Khan.
Yeah. So they are doing an interview with Shad Khan and Trent Baalke, and they ask him meaning Shad Khan, about the head coach that they would bring in. And he says, we'll evaluate a whole bunch of people, et cetera, et cetera. And the interviewer asks him just point blank and says, hey, if we bring in or you bring in a head coach, the head coach is going to want to make different changes. And if we bring in a head coach that wants to kind of do a top to bottom change, including people in the front office, how would you respond to that? And Shad Khan, again, while Trent Baalke's on the call, is saying, well, if they provide a really strong argument, I would listen to it. And you just see like Trent Baalke's face, like a little part of him died on the inside, where he was like, son of a bitch.
Telling me I watched his son's wrestling show for nothing.
Well, what are your thoughts on, I guess that, but also it was announced that Mike Vrabel, to the surprise of nobody, is going to be the New England Patriots head coach. So thoughts here on the idea of Shad Khan saying that and what that opens up as the possibility for head coach, because it could now be a Ben Johnson. Let's say he didn't want to deal with Trent Baalke. Now he may feel, hey, I could go there and rehab Trevor Lawrence. I've got BTJ. I've got Evan Ingram. I've got ETN and Bigsby. I may not have to deal with Trent Baalke. Maybe it's a little bit more appealing to him. And then also, now that we know that the Patriots are going to go through with who we all thought they were going to go through, the Patriots offseason, this is going to be very important for their long-term success, because we could argue they have the franchise quarterback. Let's just say for argument's sake,
we'll say
they may not because it was a pretty decent sample size for Drake May, but he had flashes of greatness and he had flashes of not so greatness. And the question is that a skill level on him, or is a skill level on the receivers? So if you're Vrabel, or we now know that Vrabel is there, and we know Robert Kraft is Robert Kraft, how would you build out the Patriots? And if you are the Jaguars, does that job now become more appealing for some of these head coaches? Do we now expand the list of potential head coaches for the Jags?
Yeah, so for Vrabel, you already know he's going to have players that want to go play for him. He already has an infrastructure of players who love him, and they'll fight for Mike Vrabel. Like, people forget, Mike Vrabel was second place to Jim Harbaugh for the Chargers interview. The Chargers owners called Vrabel out of respect to let him know, that they were going with Jim Harbaugh over him, but he was going to be their second. He was going to be their choice if Jim said no. So he felt respected by that. Like he goes, yeah, most teams don't call me for that. So that was good. Vrabel brings such a tough-minded culture, and he already knows the Patriots way. He's a Patriots Hall of Famer. If you're Vrabel, there was a weird rumor that came out that Vrabel might look to trade for AJ Brown, and that's like the perfect like. You want Drake May to know what kind of Vrabel system you're going to run. AJ Brown's a perfect because he didn't want to let AJ Brown go. That was the owners like literally saying we don't want to pay him, and we feel like if we can get a Robert Woods and draft a Treylon Burks, we will have two good quality weapons compared to just one weapon in AJ Brown. And Vrabel disagreed with that, but Vrabel's like, I don't make those decisions. I'm just the coach, so sure. And stuff. And that's how Vrabel, and that's why the Patriots hired Vrabel. Vrabel is not going to be all uppity about the roster construction or all that other shit. Like he's just going to say yes to whatever the crafts want, whatever the GM wants. Like he's just going to be like, all right, if you think it's best, sure. Like that's how Vrabel operates. But he's going to have a bunch of players, but definitely get like a veteran wide receiver. Like yeah, T Higgins is great. Sure, you can grab a T Higgins. But maybe you want to grab like a guy that you've known been a number one. Maybe this opens up the door for like a Tyreek Hill situation going to New England. And I know the Dolphins said they fixed the issue. They just put the who's that guy? The magic tape. They just put the magic tape.
Oh yeah.
Now. Yeah, it's not fixed. Like they just fixed a little bit of the leaking hole during the offseason. I could see Tyreek Hill going on a Twitter rampage. But getting like a strong veteran wide receiver that is a number one target. Has been a number one target, maybe disgruntled with their situation, or maybe it's just like we get him on a good deal. Bringing that guy in, so Drake May has someone that he can trust. You already got a Hunter Henry. He's been reliable, but then you can build that offensive line. Like that's what you really need to build, is that offensive line. And trust me, if Vrabel brings in the crew that he wants to bring in, he's going to have great O-line coaches that are going to recruit the hell out of some of these top O-linemen that are entering free agency. And even though it's going to be hard because the Patriots, the thing is, like, they are really, really cheap. And also it comes down to taxes in Massachusetts for some of these players. They don't want to get taxed like that. Vrabel's going to find a way to kind of convince them, like, hey, come play with us. You can reestablish a culture, when it comes down, because when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter. The Patriots from 2000 to 2010s, they have been identified as winners. They have shown they have won. They are consistent with winning. They bring that winning mentality. And ultimately, if you're a player, your legacy gets defined, especially if you're one of those like gritty position players, the O-line, D-line players of the world. Sure, unless you're an edge rusher, but if you're a defensive tackle, offensive guard, offensive tackle, ain't no one gonna remember you if you just got paid and like you played okay. Like Teron Armstead's a great left tackle for the Dolphins, but who cares? He's not winning. He's great. Laramie Tunsil has been great for years. Who cares? You're barely winning. But when you win, you remember the Sebastian Voldemers. You remember the Nate Soldiers of the world. You remember those guys because they've always been in the big games, and that helps boost your Hall of Fame legacy even more. Yeah, Joe Thomas, great left tackle. One of the best left tackles ever seen. Browns didn't do shit. The whole time they've had Joe Thomas, didn't do shit. Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, he's one of the best tackles I've seen. Didn't do shit.
Yeah.
But the Eagles, you remember Jason Kelce, you remember Lane Johnson, you remember Jason Peters because they were always winning and they were in big games and everything. So I think he could definitely build for the offensive line. And then as for the Jaguars situation, I still think they're going to keep Balky. I think he was saying if they could, that was very good business speak. Oh, it was funny. I was laughing, like
I was laughing my ass off when I watched that.
It was very funny, like, and stuff. But I definitely think he's just saying that to hopefully reel back in maybe some candidates that he lost, because by keeping Balky, you lost a lot of candidates. Because like Ben Johnson went from Bears and Jaguars as destination to now it seems like it might be leaning towards the Raiders situation, because the Raiders,
which is terrible for
when
us.
Because the Raiders decided we'll get rid of Telesco. That really felt like a move by Brady to say like, hey, I'm going to convince the hottest head coach to come here to Las Vegas. And when it comes to market, when it comes to taxes, like, look, if Ben Johnson can reestablish that Raiders culture and make it a winning culture, That's the thing that you have to look at, because instead of bringing in, like, because if Ben Johnson can bring in who he wants to bring in as GM, and those guys are on the same page and they feel like they can build a good roster, it may take a couple years, but it'll work out and stuff. Ben Johnson has been learning under Dan Campbell for years, so that's the one thing. We just have to see how he does as a head coach. Like, I feel like he's still more of an X and O's guy, but maybe he is like a Dan Campbell. Maybe he like, that's my problem. That's what I feel like Shanahan, what holds him back for so many years, is that he always wants to be the guy that makes the last play call. He hasn't given up the reins. He hasn't found someone that like how Reed has found Bieniemy and Nagy all those years, where he trusts them, where Andy Reid will put, like, he'll have those 2 Andy Reid plays where it's just like, that's vintage Andy Reid. But then certain plays, he trusts Bieniemy, he trusts Nagy to say, like, you call this play, it's on you. Like the Super Bowl play, that was a Nagy play. That wasn't no Andy Reid play. Nagy was the one that called that play to McCole Hardman because he knew what they were going to do and stuff. So that's why you got to sometimes release the realm on that. But I think the Jaguars, they're still going to get, a coaching candidate will be the best one. I don't know, but I definitely think it's going to be someone like a Joe Brady or a David Cohen at this point. No. I really think Ben Johnson to the Raiders is like, I think that's the hottest one right now, because I think after the Caleb Williams getting catfish, where he thought he was talking to Ben Johnson, but he wasn't, and stuff, like, I think that was pretty clear. Ben Johnson in Chicago is not the move, and just based off the Bears, I feel like they're going more towards we want to bring in a Pete Carroll, we want to bring in a Beeflo, a Mike McCarthy type of coach. Like, they're bringing in they're going to bring a coach that is just a little bit more like hybrid. They're kind of old school. They're kind of in an older era, but they know how to fit with the modern times just a bit. No hot shot and everything. So yeah, I definitely think, though, like Ben Johnson going to the Raiders, I think that's a huge possibility. Now, I think Brady, that'll be good for Brady's ownership stamp, where it's like, hey, I brought the hottest head coach and stuff. Like, you can't put that on me if he doesn't succeed. You guys clamored for him. I got him. I also have to believe in him, but they believe that this Ben Johnson guy, he's going to be the next Sean McVay type of coach. Where it's just like, like, hey, let's bring this guy. Like, he's the coach that, like, if you ask every team besides the Patriots, he's the coach everyone wants, because what they've seen the turnaround with the Lions, and especially the Lions for so many years have just been kind of like a whatever team, become an offensive powerhouse. You kind of want that guy on your team, like, so yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, I don't think Balky will leave.
Let me ask you, one of the names that we've also started to see pop up as head coaching opportunity, and this isn't necessarily Jacksonville, this is just in general, is Todd Monken with the Ravens. One, do you think that Monken would leave? And two, if you do think that he would leave, where do you think he would go?
Yeah, I think Monken would leave. Why wouldn't he? It's a job. I mean, he left Georgia. He had Georgia, like, he was pretty much the OC for Georgia, and he could have stayed there for so many years and kept winning national championships. But he decided to go to Baltimore, and I could see it where Monken, Todd Monken just feels like such a Saints coach. Like, I could just see Todd Monken on the sidelines for the Saints, and it's just like, oh, and there's Coach Todd Monken, and stuff. He feels like such. But I feel like that would be a good hire for, like a Jacksonville, a guy that, can bring like, I know Trevor Lawrence is far removed from college football, but maybe, Monken, for his time in college, he can figure out, some plays that Trevor Lawrence likes and can establish that. BTJ is still will just be 2 years removed from college and stuff. Like, ETN, that was some of his best career work was in college. So I feel Jacksonville would be a good thing. And I don't know Monken's personality, because I never seen him as a head coach for an NFL team. So I don't know how he would deal with the GM like Balky. I don't know if that would throw him off the rails, but Monken wouldn't be a bad coach for, like, honestly, any team that misses out on Ben Johnson. Like, you miss out on Ben Johnson, Monken showed that, like, like, he showed it at Georgia. He showed it with the Ravens this year.
If I'm Todd Monken, I think I would stay. I think I would stay another year with Baltimore, mainly because I would want to be able to see if I could get over the hump with Lamar, et cetera, because, even if you go on to become a head coach and do well, do poorly, whatever the case may be. If you're always able to be the person that can walk into a room and say, all that shit that you guys talked about Lamar not being a good quarterback and this, that, and the third, I'm the guy that fixed the offense to the point that Lamar Jackson got a ring. You could make you could be the person that kind of says I make that argument. I'm the reason why that. Obviously, I'm not saying Lamar's a bad quarterback in any way, shape, or form, but because of the conversation that surrounds Lamar, if you are able to be like, I'm like John Harbaugh is going to be able to be like, you guys talk shit about Lamar, we got a ring, and Monken's going to be able to be like, you guys talk shit about Lamar. It wasn't Lamar. It was Greg Roman. We got Greg Roman out of there. They brought me in. I fixed this shit. We got a ring. And it's one of those situations where, maybe there isn't the best of coaching. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the Ravens don't win this year. They win next year, right? Let's just argue. 2026, there may not be as good of a head coaching position available. But if you took the Jaguars and you went nowhere, or you take one of these less desirable ones next year and you go nowhere, you at least have the ability to say, I got a ring. And if I'm Todd Monken, who provides the best opportunity to get a ring? Some quarterback and a running back, or Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry? And if I push the front office of Baltimore, and the front office of Baltimore has made smart decision after smart decision.
Yeah.
If you push them to get a wide receiver in this, especially in this draft, if you find a way, if like say Luther Burden falls to where you are at say 24, 25, he probably won't. But I'm saying like if one of those guys falls, or you're in a position where it doesn't cost you that much to move up, like let's say for argument's sake, Luther Burden is still available at 17, 18, 16, somewhere in that range. It'll cost you your pick. If you're like, let's say you get bounced this week and you're pick number 23 or 24, it'll cost you that pick number 24 plus a little bit more, but it's not going to cost you a huge amount to go up. And if you can pair somebody like Zay Flowers with a Luther Burden, who took a step back this year at Missouri, but that kind of was because of the quarterback. And now you go, hey, you've got Zay to work with. You've got Isaiah Likely to work with. You've got Mark Andrews to work with. Oh, and we've got arguably the best running back in the game to take pressure off of what the passing game has to do. And we have Lamar to take pressure off what the passing game has to do. Then Luther Burden can get back to 2023 Luther Burden and look really good. So if he's able, like, it's the same situation why a lot of people were saying Ben Johnson was going to take a head coaching job in 24, and I was of the belief that he would stay with Detroit because Detroit afforded him the best opportunity to win a ring. And if you're a coordinator, you kind of know, as long as if I get a ring, I can choose pretty much any head coaching job I want. If I'm an OC or a DC, I will have the ability to make that choice whenever I want, however I want. So do the thing that gives you the best opportunity to win, and then you can kind of play around, because the money for coaches is, at this point, it's guaranteed. It's pretty much guaranteed. So from the player perspective, because you and I were talking about the Lions having to pay people, I completely understand it from the player's perspective. If it's like, hey, Detroit wants to pay me 10 a year or 12 a year, and Atlanta, for example, wants to give me 17 or 18 a year. If the taxes and all that other stuff work in the favor, I completely understand taking the Atlanta deal, because a ring is a ring, but generational wealth is generational. If you're a coach, I'm much more of the belief of try to get the ring first and then be like, okay, now let me try to play around with, I can make a guy run this way. I run that way. I can do all this, that, and the third. For the coaches, it's much more about rings and how you win them. And once you get the one as the coordinator, then, you can be like, okay, I proved you guys wrong once. Now you want to bet against me that I can do it as a head coach. All right, bet. Let's see what we can do. Like that would be my perspective, but like I'd be really interested to talk to a head coach or an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. That'll probably never happen in my life, but I'd love to be able to talk to them and say what was the thought process about accepting job X versus job Y and why you did it at a certain time period.
Yeah,
So
and
that'll
we've
be
seen that with other coaches too, like McDaniels. He stayed
yeah,
for so many years in New
yeah,
England when he was like the hot head coach candidate. And Spagnuolo, a lot of people said, "Oh, how come Spags hasn't had a second shot at a head coach?" He just enjoys being with Andy Reid, and he loves what they do with the Chiefs. So he doesn't see the need to like leave that situation. And Monken could also feel the same way. I just feel like with Todd Monken, he's been like an OC for so many bad teams, and like
yeah,
people have been like saying, "Oh, he's not really that good of an OC. Kind of stinks." And then he goes to Georgia, and it's like he does really well with that offense. And that offense, Georgia's offense is not like this crazy great offense that they had. Like he was working with Stetson Bennett for fuck's sakes. Like he was working with like what he could work with. They got JT Daniels, who they thought, oh, this guy's gonna change the whole landscape, and then it's just like, oh no, Stetson Bennett's better. We're gonna go with him and stuff. And that's the thing. Like, and then he goes to Baltimore, and it's like, okay, cool. He has Lamar Jackson. He just won the MVP. Yeah. Guess what? He designed an offense now where Lamar Jackson had a better season than his last MVP season, and probably is gonna win a third MVP. And I feel with Monken, he would look at it like, sure, winning a ring would be nice, but I just want to prove that I can be a head coach compared to
yeah.
like
That's
like
fair.
winning a ring in Baltimore. That's cool, like awesome, oh cool. But when for Monken, I feel his window. It's kind of like Bieniemy, where Bieniemy just never took the opportunities when they were there because he wanted to like stay in Kansas City, and I felt like that's why Bieniemy has never became a head coach. And then when you saw the flaws in Bieniemy, and now Bieniemy, you're like, where's he at? Well, he just got fired from UCLA. Like like they'll say, oh well, he left on his own terms. No, he got fired. They're just being nice because they know Bieniemy has a certain name and a certain reputation around not only college but in the NFL. So they want to give Bieniemy a fair chance. But like Brian Ruplich, another great example. Remember, he was like the hot offensive coordinator. Everyone was like,
Right.
"Oh,
Yeah.
Leftwich, what he's doing with Brady at this age." Da da da. Now he's like at Texas State and he's doing good stuff, but then it's just like he's not like the head coach that everyone thought because he decided to stay a little bit longer. And so if you're Todd Monken and you look at your history where it's like, okay, I coached the Browns with Freddie Kitchens and we sucked and they got rid of me right away. And then I was with Tampa Bay with Dirk Cutter and we sucked then too. And then it was just like they got rid of me right away. And then you got to this Georgia team where you really revitalized the Georgia's offense that just couldn't get over the hump. And now you go to Baltimore, and even if you don't make the Super Bowl, just what you've done with this offense, knowing that, hey, this might be my only window. Like, yeah, you could stay one more year, but what if that 1 year? Because look at Greg Roman, he stayed long, and then later on they showed him the door. What if he has one bad year? They're not going to blame Harbaugh. They're not going to blame their defensive coordinator. They're going to blame you. You're going to be the number one guy that they're going to always blame. So, especially in Baltimore. So you might as well just say, screw it. I want to be a head coach. I want to be my own staff. I want to be a leader of men. I know I can do this. Let me go ahead and take my head coach opportunity before it's too late. Let me get my bag, and whatever happens. Like if you're Todd Monken in that situation, Ben Johnson made all the sense in the world. Like he didn't feel comfortable with the commander situation. He was just like, I don't know. I don't. Are they going to draft a quarterback? I don't know. I have something good with the Lions. I'm going to stay. Like he didn't like the situations. Now the situations are different, and maybe he didn't want to live in Washington. Maybe it's more appealing to live in a Vegas or Jacksonville, like if those jobs were available and stuff. So we never know like what coaches really want. They're like very interesting figures and human beings, but some coaches, like for example, like I would not be surprised like if Jesse Minter from the Chargers, even though the Chargers defense fell off in the playoffs, if a team came knocking to his door and they offered him a head coaching job, he is not hesitating. He'll go and become a head coach because that's what he wants to be. So,
Yeah, and that leads us to one thing that I forgot to bring up last week, but there are 4 teams that are available as choices for Hard Knocks, and you cannot. You're going to hear me say the teams, And assuming that a certain player is still on that team, you cannot pick that team. But I want to know, who would you be interested to see a Hard Knocks with? So the choices right now are the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans. And you cannot, we're going to assume two scenarios. First scenario is Will Levis is still a Titan, and the other scenario is Will Levis is not a Titan. In the scenario where Will Levis is still a Titan, you cannot pick the Titans. And if Will Levis is not a Titan, you can pick any team you want.
Honestly, okay, the Falcons. Who's interesting on? There's no one like what? Penix?
There's Michael Penix. Come on. There's Bijan Robinson. There's Drake
showing Bijan working. No, like who would entertain me off the field? Like, I'll hard skip on Atlanta.
You don't want to hear. Wait, hold on. You don't want to hear great coach speak from Raheem Morris?
No, I'm good. I feel like I would lose brain cell. It would just be like Eberflus. Maybe he grows a goatee, and they're like, "Oh, Raheem Morris grew a goatee, like Eberflus grew a beard." Carolina would be interesting because I don't even know if they've ever been on one of these like Hard Knocks or anything like that. So I think Canales can be an interesting guy. Like I feel Canales would be he'd be an interesting guy to hear from. I mean, Leggett alone would just be fucking hilarious. Like you'll get Leggett, like they would definitely shoot a segment where Leggett's hunting raccoons and stuff like that. Be like, yeah, man, and this is where I go right here sometime and to get the coon. You know what I'm saying? Like just having Leggett alone.
Panthers have never been on Hard Knocks. Actually,
yeah,
I don't so the Falcons were, but that was 2014. The Titans have never been. The Panthers have never been, and the Seahawks have never been.
Yeah, see, the Seahawks, I don't know. Mike McDonald just seemed like he would be so boring as like the main head coach and stuff. And then, I mean, there's a lot of cool things to do in Seattle, but I don't feel there's any juicy storylines in Seattle. Like there's not enough meat on the bone. Like besides maybe DK, like this is DK Metcalf, and then they just show him working out, and you just see he's like a freak. He goes, one of the top receivers in the NFL. And you want to know how he works, and they play like the music, and they just show it, and you're like, "Geez, DK's a beast." But other than that, there's nothing else that would make me say, "Oh, that looks like a great season." I think it's between the Panthers and the Titans, and the Titans are more interesting not because of Levis, but it's because they're gonna have the first overall pick, and if that's Shador, oh my god, you're gonna give Shador all access, like oh my, that right there is gonna be interesting. Like just having a Shador all access and. You know, the Titans are a scrappy team, and they have guys like L'Jarius Sneed and stuff like freaking Calvin Ridley is also kind of low-key hilarious. But I think the Panthers would be interesting just because like you already have some goofy characters on the Panthers, and then it's just like I feel Canales would be kind of like a low-key sleeper good coach to follow. Like because like really to be honest, the coaches are really important for Hard Knocks. It's like the players help it, but you need that because the coaches is who they follow the most. So you really need good coaches for you to be like intrigued. Like if you don't have any good coaches, then it's kind of like, this is boring because that's who they show the most during their downtime and everything like that. Like the coaches really are the main characters.
I would go with either the Panthers or I would go with Seattle. Mainly because like I'm interested to see who Seattle brings in as the offensive coordinator, and I want to see how they're going to install that game plan because they basically have their pick of threats. With like I don't know, I look at it from like the football aspect of it is interests me more than like people being quote unquote entertaining.
Dave Canales is a great football mind.
Come on,
he revived Bryce Young.
Jury's still out about that. Okay, I get it. You like Bryce Young.
No, Bryce
but I'm saying
back, baby.
I get to follow DK Metcalf, JSN, K9, Zach Charbonnet. Get to see what happens. Like if Lockett retires, if Lockett they trade him or they cut it, whatever the case is. If they bring in a third wide receiver, like that kind of a situation. Get to see the development of AJ Barner, whether he can take the tight end role from Noah Fant because they've never really used the tight end like that. That's something that I'm kind of intrigued to see, but like I look at that from like the football perspective.
I also feel that the Panthers will have like a lot more like sleeper guys, where it's just like the
right
because I love the will this guy make the roster? I love that's what I love about Hard Knocks and stuff. Like we're talking about freaking Ian Wheeler and Bayless Jones being running back
that's true. That's
on the
true.
Bears. Like I like that aspect where it's like, and I feel like the Panthers, they will have a lot more undrafted guys and like because like you got to make it where the preseason games look epic and stuff too. Like that's what makes it fun when the preseason games are also fun. Are they going to do off season again? Are they going to do
that's really interesting. So they passed at the last owners meeting, they passed a Hard Knocks related resolution, but part of that they didn't include Hard Knocks off season as part of that. So they had a NFL Films VP. He was on McAfee's show not too long ago, and they were talking about it specifically off season. And he said what's going to happen there with off season is NFL Films would love to have it back. Obviously, it's free viewership and free money.
Oh yeah,
but they would need to have a team volunteer, in essence. And what team is going to volunteer for Hard Knocks?
After that Giants,
after what happened with the Giants, nobody is going to volunteer for that.
Because I really do feel like if they did not do the offseason, people wouldn't be ripping the Giants as hard as they would letting Saquon go. Because then you're just like, oh, well, they didn't want to pay a running back. That's fine.
But now
but because you know their thought process of what they were thinking about doing, you're just like, wait, they could have paid Saquon. They could have paid Saquon, but they wanted to pay all these other running backs instead of Saquon. And then even the list of guys that they named, they didn't even go after. They didn't even go after these guys.
The crazy thing is that I actually I fully understand what Jeff Schoen was trying to do, and I actually agree with it. That's the crazy thing is I understand the idea of Saquon Barkley, but if you can't protect Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley and get the holes open for him, you could have injuries, you could have just issues with games and things like that. And realistically, the power behind a running back is an offensive line. Saquon Barkley did great work behind the terrible Giants O-line. But we are seeing right now what happens when you put that running back behind one of the best lines in the entire NFL. So I understand.
I think my issue was that they were listing guys like Jacobs and all these other guys that would have been great replacements, but they didn't even try to go after them. They literally didn't. They literally just paid Singletary.
No, because they couldn't.
A lot of
money. They couldn't because their primary thing was we need to fix the line first.
No, it's just how much they gave Singletary when you could have given the same to Jacobs. That's my thing. Where it's just like you talked about
what's the differences between the contracts. I don't think it's that much money I think it is a good bit of money between what they're paying, what the Packers are paying Jacobs versus what they're paying Singletary. Yeah. So Singletary got a 3-year, $16.5 million contract. So his cap hit is 3.75, then 6.25, and then 6.5. Jacobs got a 4-year, $48 million deal. So his cap hit this year was $5 million, and then his cap hit is 11, 14, and 16. They didn't have the money to give Josh Jacobs that. Not if they were going to rebuild the line. They had to go with somebody like Devin Singletary. Now, they lucked out in that they scouted well and drafted Tyrone Tracy. So it doesn't look as terrible as it could have been, because if they'd gone for somebody else, then, who knows what's happening with that running game. But I completely understand what he was trying to do, and I kind of agree with it, because it's ultimately, even if Daniel Jones isn't the guy, which they found out very quickly he really isn't.
But do you think they targeted the right guys? Because most of these guys didn't do a great job. Runyon.
Well, no, that's the thing. You can swing and you can miss, right? You can swing and you can miss. But the thing is, if you build a great offensive line, right, and you try to do that first, which is because that's the thing. We talk about how many teams every year. We talk about, if they got to rebuild the line and also add some pieces. But it's how many quality players are there that you can rebuild a line with? And if you draft, then you have to develop that person, because they don't teach O-line anymore in college. So if you think about it, if you build your O-line first, I understand Saquon Barkley is a once-in-a-generational talent. I understand Josh Jacobs is a really good talent, but how many running backs are there every single year that are of the caliber of a Josh Jacobs, a Joe Mixon, or a Devin Singletary, at least what Devin Singletary was? There's always going to be a running back in the draft that you can find that will be that. Like, think about it this year. This past draft was not considered to be that great for running backs. But Bucky Irving was there. Tyrone Tracy was there. There were guys that were available. So if you first get build a solid offensive line, and then you look for your running back, at least you have somebody for that running back to run with. If you don't have your offensive line, then it doesn't matter if you put Saquon Barkley in there. Saquon Barkley can't carry the load himself. And if you have a quarterback like a Daniel Jones who needs to be protected, and you're not able to protect him because you didn't put money into the O-line, then what does it matter if Daniel Jones is a great quarterback? He's not going to have the time to actually be able to throw the ball. So I understand what he was trying to do. I actually agree with the philosophy behind the idea. Now the question is, and this is what I was talking about before, the idea of the GMs that are able to Les Snead. When I was talking about Les Snead and the Rams, I was saying they trust the scouts and they know how to hire the scouts as well. What was the scouting problem that caused you to maybe swing and a miss on some of the O-line people that you did sign or that you did make offers to versus the ones that were available that may have been better? That's really the question. It's not, because think of it this way. If their O-line...
They also showed that he kind of fucked up where he was waiting for Brian Burns to be traded, and he could have done that's where it's also really bad, because he could have made a lot better moves, but because they were waiting, because Brian Burns was going to be signed and traded, or this weird rule where Brian Burns was I've never heard of this in the NFL. I don't know how he was this restricted. This is like NBA shit where they're restricted free agents, so you got to do a sign and trade and stuff. But because they were waiting 12 hours for the Panthers GM to get back to them, it kind of fucked up like their whole strategy for the offseason too. Like, because they literally lost out on, like Wilkins. Like, they were thinking about Christian Wilkins as a backup, and then they lost out on him. One of the guards that they were looking at, I believe he got like signed while they were still waiting for Brian Burns, because they couldn't really offer that money because they're like, oh, well, we're waiting on something. You want to wait? No, I'm not going to wait. And so, no, his idea is right. It just more comes off as bad because he treated Saquon like he's nothing. Like that.
Well,
that's the way. That's the way. That's
human
where
aspect of it. The human aspect is where he fucked up.
Yeah, that's from a human side of things. He treated Saquon like it was nothing and stuff. And then it's just hilarious when John Mara is just like that stubborn grandpa where he's like, I really want Saquon. Like he just
hurt my heart.
It'll hurt my heart and stuff. Like, and look, I like when people say, why did Mara keep Dayball and kept Joe Shane? Why didn't you get rid of these guys? They haven't shown anything. Like, look, there was not that long ago, Tom Coughlin was in the same fucking situation.
Yeah.
He was sucking ass.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the 9-7 New York Football Giants upsetted the 16-0 Patriots or 17-0 Patriots. So that's why John Mara is very big on, like, he doesn't want it to bite him in the ass type of things. Like he feels like if he lets go of Daboll and he lets go of Joe Shane, he might make a huge mistake, and then Daboll goes somewhere else, because Daboll will still get a head coach job. Worst case.
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is the other thing a lot. Like, I know we're veering off on a separate subject, but like a lot of times people be like, we got to fire the head coach. We got to fire, this. A lot of times fans will call for that, and I go, okay, fine. You want to fire? Let's say you're a Giants fan and you want to fire Daboll. Fine. You want to fire Brian Daboll. Who are you going to get to replace him?
Yeah,
the question isn't whether or not Daboll is a good coach or should be fired or whatever that is. It's like, okay, fire him, fine. But who's going to replace him? Because it has to be somebody that wants to come to the organization, and then on top of that will be better than Daboll.
Yeah.
And there's not,
and
like,
you got to find a whole new GM too.
There's really not, more often than not, there's really not that many head coaches that are better than a certain coach that you may have. Like if you're the what's it, the Cowboys, and you're saying, okay, because they did let Mike McCarthy's contract expire. If you're the Cowboys, it's like, okay, we're letting Mike McCarthy's contract expire. Who are we going to get to replace Mike McCarthy? Because even if you want to make the argument that Mike McCarthy was never going to get them the Super Bowl, which fine, he was never going to get them the Super Bowl, he was at least getting you a lot closer than a lot of other head coaches were.
Yeah.
Like now you're in a position where you got to find somebody who can at least do what Mike McCarthy did. And even and the thing is, if this season, whoever they do get, from however many wins the Cowboys had, and yes, Dak was hurt, Micah was hurt, sure, okay, I get it. But if that person doesn't get at least the same number of wins, then you're looking at it going, are we rebuilding? Because if you believe it's a plug and play situation, because a lot of these people are saying, oh, like, the Giants, it could be a plug and play situation. No, it's not. Like that is in a team in a rebuild. Absolute rebuild, and they have two studs right now on offense. They've got one of the studliest of studs as the best wide receiver from the draft in Malik Neighbors, and they've got Tyrone Tracy. Maybe you can make an argument that they've got something in Theo Johnson, but he's definitely not a stud at this point when it comes to tight ends or offenses in general. So the question there is, if you're saying this has been a rebuild or a needed rebuild for a long time, great. But who is going to be in charge of it? If you don't trust Joe Schoen and you don't trust Brian Daboll and you fire them, who is going to come in to replace them? And if it's not going to be somebody better than those guys, then what other choice do you have? Like you're going to be completely sucking, and if you're a fan, you're going to sit through something either that's the same, which is hard to pull off because the same, or you're going to sit through something that's worse, which is hard to pull off because the Giants already were terrible. So it's like, yeah, okay, now you have the second overall pick or the first overall pick, but the question is, do you now trust this new GM that you got to replace Schoen, and this new head coach that you got to replace Daboll? Do you trust them to make the selection?
Yeah, because like at least Joe Schoen, he showed in the offseason, he was trying to move up for one of these quarterbacks. It wasn't like he wasn't trying. Like he literally was thinking, like they did their due diligence on these quarterbacks. Like he was willing to offer a whole lot for Drake May. The Patriots were the ones that said no. They said he offered 3 first-round picks for the third, and then later on just asked for some seconds back. And the Patriots said no, we're just gonna stick at 3. They decided to stick at 3. It wasn't like the Giants didn't try. Like when a team comes with 3 first-round picks and you're the Patriots, you're doing the map, and you're like, man, the Giants are going to suck for some time. Like, no, they really like what they saw from Drake May, so they said, no, we like what we see from this kid. We're going to trust that he's the guy and stuff. And then, freaking Daboll, he even said too, like he wanted Jaden Daniels. Like he felt good about Jaden Daniels and stuff, but there's no way a division rival is gonna like let you trade up to number 2. Like Washington's not gonna be like, what? Help you?
Yeah.
Like, if there's any other team, no division, maybe they weren't sold on Daniels. Maybe they would have gotten those picks up. But because of the fact that it was a division rival, they're not going to trade with them. And especially when you heard the reports that every other quarterback waited for an Uber at Washington, but Dan Quinn himself picked up Jaden Daniels. That's what you should have known. Yeah, I know. Right? Jaden Daniels is going to Washington. Caleb Williams, Drake May and all the other dudes have to wait for Ubers, but freaking Jaden Daniels gets the red limo. I get to hang out with Dan Campbell. Not Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn for a little bit. So that should have shown you. But yeah, like you said, you gotta like have some trust and some faith in sometimes like Daboll, has he shown flaws? Absolutely, as a head coach. But the one caveat was he was not big on Daniel Jones. He thought that they signed Daniel Jones, and also too, maybe the Hard Knocks did not show us. Maybe John Mara is the one that really wants to keep Daniel Jones because he saw something in it.
I think he
that
was.
we did. Yeah, because we could say, oh, Joe Shane's the idiot that re-signed Daniel Jones, but from what we can tell, John Mara is a very emotional guy. Maybe John Mara was like, if we let him go, how do you know we're going to get another quarterback as good as Danny? Like he could have said that last offseason and stuff. So this could have been like John Mara saying, you know what, I trust in my guys. I feel like is this their last chance? Maybe it's Joe Shane's last chance. I feel Daboll will still get some leeway as the head coach. Like they'll say, like, hey, let's see what you can do now. and stuff now that you don't have Danny Dimes, who and this is the thing with Dable. I know from being an Alabama fan, he gets frustrated if his quarterbacks don't understand his language. They don't understand what you're supposed to do on this read.
You know what's funny? You saw that in the interview when he had it with Jaden Daniels, because Jaden couldn't remember, like, it was like Z something, but Dable had said X instead of Z, and Dable corrects him, and it's like, dude, like, is it that big of a deal? Like, I get it. Maybe it is. Maybe it really is, because you're thinking to yourself, in game situations, if I say X trigger and this kid hears Z trigger, and then all of a sudden we're doing something different, maybe that's a difference between a win and a loss. Maybe. I don't know. But like in the grand scheme, you can if you think you're a good coach, you can coach that out of him. You should be able to coach that out of him. And yeah, it's a crazy situation in a sense, because you have Malik Neighbors, and it's crazy. The reason why I say it's crazy is because it's a situation where Malik Neighbors could turn into the new Terry McLaurin, where it's a guy who's playing with a whole bunch of quarterbacks over the course of his career, and he just keeps putting up numbers because he's Malik Neighbors. Like, Terry McLaurin put up numbers with a host of different quarterbacks. Mike Evans put up numbers with a host of different quarterbacks. Now, granted, towards the end of this 11-year journey, he's had a Hall of Famer in Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield. So yes, he was doing great. He had a lot of opportunities, but for the beginning part of his career, he really didn't have great quarterbacks throwing to him down in Tampa. There's the same thing that can be said for CeeDee Lamb, especially this year. CeeDee Lamb's put up, I think, the fourth. He was the fourth wide receiver in fantasy football, at least. If that's one of the things we're going to use to gauge it. But like, just from a pure, like, how many catches and how many yards did he get? Put up great numbers with Cooper Rush. It's a situation where Malik Neighbors could turn into what's called the QB proof wide receiver, and that's going to suck for Malik Neighbors, because you can tell from those interviews, from that Hard Knocks, the level of competitiveness that he has. But it's a situation where you're looking at it and he's got to go, I'm going to do great statistically, but I'm not going to win meaningful games. And Mike Evans did not win meaningful games, like real meaningful games, until Tom Brady got there. Terry McLaurin did not win meaningful games until Jaden Daniels got there. How long that's going to take for Malik Neighbors, we're going to see. This offseason, like, the Giants are a team that fascinate me when it comes to this offseason, because they're not a quarterback away at all, but they are a quarterback away from competing. And the question, I think, for them is going to be, if we get that quarterback, do we compete ourselves out of getting the players that we do need? Because Daniel Jones had them competitive enough that they were winning games, and they were, to your point, ending up like 9-7. They had that playoff game, and they were picking too high to be able to make a difference with the overall team, and they couldn't move up to get the players that they wanted. So that's going to be something else that we definitely track. But is there anything else that you want to cover or talk about while we are here this fine evening?
I think we covered everything.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out. I was like, we've only got a few games to talk about. What are we gonna talk about? And here we are, going beyond. But guys, we want to thank you once again for tuning in this week. We pretty much had the same games selected. We went Chiefs for Chiefs and Texans. We went Bills for Bills and Ravens. We went Eagles for Eagles and Rams. And we went Lions for Lions and Commanders. So we want to thank you all for tuning in. We want to wish Chase a happy birthday once again. He could have been anywhere in the world, but he decided to be here on this stream with me. And I appreciate that, sir. So happy birthday once again.
Thank you, sir.
And guys, until next time, remember, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will catch you all later.